next week's board packet. Good evening, everyone. This formal meeting of the Board of Education for November 25th, 2014 is called to order, and I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. Any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. This meeting is being televised live and will be replayed throughout the next 2 weeks. Please check the board website for replay times. And this meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV services website. Director Morton is absent this evening. So the first thing on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Whoops. Superintendent Smith, would you like to present your report?
I would. And actually, I am going to start by introducing you to a Madison student, Mustaf Muhammad, who was just awarded a Beating the Odds scholarship by Stanford Children at their luncheon. This is a really coveted scholarship, so he's one of 3 in the Portland area, the only one from Portland Public Schools to be awarded one of these scholarships this year. And I wanted here's a picture of him at the award ceremony. But I wanted to play the brief video that they played at the stand luncheon that is really a story about Mustaf Muhammad, and then offer him the opportunity to come on up and say a few words. But it was a wonderful ceremony and a really great tribute to you and the staff at Madison High School and to your family. So it was really exciting. Here's the story.
My name is Mustaf Muhammad, and I am a senior at Madison High School. I was born in Kenya in a place called Dadaab, which was a refugee camp. And after staying there for a couple of 6 to 5 years, we moved to Kakuma, which was another refugee camp. It was pretty scary because it was just dusty and hot, and then we didn't have food. I don't think I really had that much school. I'd go for a couple of months, and then there would be days that I wouldn't go for a couple of months. I couldn't really understand the teachers, really. They're the ones that could speak our language. They didn't have time to go to every single student. I wasn't really understanding anything. I was just copying stuff down. But it was also kind of harsh school because here where you're punished with grades, and there you're punished with actual punishment if you're failing. We boarded a plane from Nairobi and arrived in New York. And then we stayed there for a little bit, and then we moved to Ohio. But I didn't really speak English when I first came. And they put me in the normal class with all the other kids. I wasn't really understanding anything. I was just copying things word for word. I was still afraid of school. I wouldn't even talk to my teachers. I was frightened of everything, the whole news surroundings. And then we moved to Oregon. Came here my freshman year.
Habia nagadimai hadiroi ade beti habia nagadimai semudi. Mirfi ang maraf school paradan college lekadan college kana ke graduate sa sarabade.
The scholarship means a lot, not only financially, but also in just someone saying, you've got something special.
When I found out about the BTI scholarship, I was on the bus. I was about to go crazy, screaming really? And it just gave me a realization that maybe I can get somewhere if I just believe in myself.
So Mustaf, come on up and I'd love for you to just say a few words about what this means for you. And again, I want to just do a big call out and thank you to all the staff at Madison High School. And you sit right there. And a huge congratulations to you. This is a great honor.
Thank you. This scholarship means a lot to me, and I'm really happy for it because it makes, it opens a lot of opportunities to me. It just makes me very happy that somebody's willing to invest in me. And I would like to thank my mom for all the hard work she has done to support me in everything that I needed, and the staff at Madison High School because they believed in me and made me look past my grades and just look into the future and made me believe that maybe I could be something, which was really nice. I never had I never went to a place where people said you could be something if you tried hard, and they really pushed me, which was really nice. And my counselors for helping me select the classes that I liked. So
awesome. That's great. Mustaf, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I also wanted to do a call out and a thank you to everyone who has been part of the second annual Children's Book Harvest. So it ends tomorrow. We've had people at 30 of our schools and the BESC dropping off books, and they're both new books and gently used books. But as part of our third grade reading campaign, we're really trying to help families build their home libraries, and this has been a huge effort to do that. If you are late in coming to the table and want to still be able to donate a book, you can still donate books online through it's childrensbookbank.org, and you can go on and buy a book, and it will be donated to the Children's Book Harvest. So we're really excited about this. What happens is prior to summer vacation, students will be able to actually select 10 of their books of their choice to take home to build their home library. So part of supporting early reading. Parent-teacher conferences were held earlier this year, so we moved them into October rather than they traditionally would have been held this week. They require a lot of work by our teachers and schools to prepare for our parents and students. I just want to say a thank you to everyone, our parents, our students, and our teachers and our principals for making these be really successful opportunities for families to engage and learn how they're supporting their students to be successful in school. So thank you to everyone for that. About a month ago, we had dozens of community and business leaders, including Bobby Regan and Ruth Atkins, board members, who were out being guest principals in our schools in the Principal for Almost a Day. This is organized by our partner All Hands Raised and really gives business leaders, elected officials, the mayor, county commissioners, city commissioners, the opportunity to go inside our schools and learn what goes on a day-to-day basis and learn what the jobs of our educators are like. This is the 14th year that we have done this. We had 50 schools and programs hosting, and a really successful day. We get great feedback back from this, and just where it really opens people's eyes to what goes on in our schools every day. So thank you to everyone who participated in Principal for Almost a Day this year. Another thing that we are doing earlier this year is our 8th grade information nights. So Wilson has already kicked off the open house season with hundreds of 8th graders and their families, followed by Benson, Roosevelt, and Grant. On December 4th, Franklin holds its Discover Franklin, and it'll be held at Marshall High School this year, where Franklin students will attend for the next 2 years while their school is being modernized. Madison's open house is on December 11th at 6 p.m., and Cleveland, Jefferson, and Lincoln will hold their open houses in January. We had Senator Ron Wyden give an early plug for Madison at a town hall with students on November 21st. We had more than 100 students stay after, and he did a great plug to Madison, saying the students of Madison have got it together in STEM, the arts, and diversity. I look forward to someday voting for some of you. So call out to our Madison students from Ron Wyden, which is kind of cool. So another person I'd like to honor tonight is Alma Velasquez. She received recognition at this year's Courageous Conversations About Race Summit, and she received the Summit Teaching and Learning Award. It's a really big honor. So this is a national award for courageous teaching and learning, and we're really proud of you, Alma. That's really wonderful recognition. Alma immigrated from Mexico at the age of 16, earned English, graduated, and became a journalist covering immigration, poverty, and the achievement gap before going into teaching. In her immersion classroom, she used culturally relevant literature to set the stage for rich discussions with her students about race and justice. And I'm going to ask you to come on up and just say a few words. And again, huge recognition. This is like educators across the country, and Alma is really being honored as one of our fine examples.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Smith. I just want to thank you for your acknowledgement and say that I am so grateful for having had the opportunity to attend the National Summit of Courageous Conversations. The experience was something that impacted me greatly as a teacher and educator, and to just be able to work with people from all over the country who are trying to tackle the impact that race has on our students' achievement. It is work that takes your whole heart and your whole mind, And I'm just happy to be in the journey. I by no means feel accomplished in this area, but again, I'm a learner in this process and just thankful to have had the chance to go, and I appreciate your recognition.
Congratulations. So we recently got a call from someone who is now 92 years old, was formerly a teacher at Grant High School, and he reached out to our library assistant, Wendy Geisler, looking for a copy of a textbook he co-authored when he was working here at Portland Public Schools called Great Speeches from Pericles to Kennedy. And he had no copies of the text. And so Wendy went looking for them and ended up locating a copy, which we just sent to him. But I just wanted to call out and honor him. He really wanted his family to have a copy. He talked a lot about his experience in Portland Public Schools. He taught for us from 1955 to 1981, initially at Grant and then at Adams. And we want to thank him for his service to Portland Public Schools and hope his family enjoys seeing the book. And it's a very cool book. So just to say, a nice tribute to a former teacher. Our fall sports are wrapping up for Portland Interscholastic League, and I want to extend congratulations to all of our athletes, including our newly minted middle school athletes, for their accomplishments this year. One of our standout athletes this fall is Grant High School's Ella Donahue. She won the state 6A cross-country championship for the second year in a row, and then went on to win the Northwest Regional Championships in Boise, competing against runners from 6 states. Way to go, Ella. So congratulations. And then I wanted to recognize Hayhurst, Robert Gray Middle School, and Wilson High School for welcoming and supporting families from the new Stevens Creek Crossing housing development. They held their college and career night at Stevens Creek. And so they had PSU, PCC, and other higher ed institutions there doing college readiness, financial aid, career technical education, outreach to families. And we wanted to thank partners from Neighborhood House, Pivot, and Job Corps who helped to do that with us. But what a great thing to do to welcome this new housing community into this neighborhood. And finally, as we head into the Thanksgiving holidays, I wanted to do a harvest season story about our Farm to School program, which is now in its 9th year in Portland Public Schools. And again, we're held up as a model nationally. Last week, Deborah Kane, who is USDA's National Director for Farm to School Programs, visited Sitton Elementary School for breakfast as a way to check in on our USDA grant, which is used to incorporate local foods into our breakfasts. Deborah Kane is a PPS parent and was instrumental in helping us implement our Farm to School program when she was with EcoTrust. Also last week, students from Lent K-8 school tested their love of Brussels sprouts at their school and then went to Zenger Farms to see the vegetables harvested. So I'll end this Thanksgiving week report with a short video featuring the Lent students and their Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. I mean, Brussels sprouts. Hey, I never tried a Brussels sprout, but I'm going to try a Brussels sprout just for you.
So kids who haven't tasted Brussels sprouts are sitting next to kids whose families may really eat them.
They're just really tasty.
With our Farm to School program, we're really able to connect the students in the cafeteria with the farms and able to educate the students as to where food comes from.
So I'm Allison here at Zenger Farm, and today we are going to be hosting 3rd graders and 4th graders from Lent School in Portland Public School District. which is a school that is in our neighborhood. That's pure fresh water. That's really good. On the outside of it. A lot of kids will come out here and they've never been to a farm before. They've never seen food growing in the ground. They've only seen it in grocery stores. So it's really exciting to see kids go up to, say, a kale plant and actually pick a leaf off of the kale plant and then immediately taste it. So what I like about the Farm to School program is that kids are making the connection between the environment and their own health.
Is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time we'll have student testimony. Ms. Houston, do we have any students signed up? We do not, okay. In that case, I'll ask Student Representative Joswald for her report.
Superintendent Smith, members of the board, and members of the public, thank you for allowing me the chance to address you tonight. So tonight we have some students from SuperSAC, which is the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, which is made up of students from across the district who come together to tackle issues at a district level. Many serve on committees, and right now we're actually in the middle of planning our leadership forum, which is scheduled for next Thursday, and it's where we've invited student leadership classes from across all the district high schools to come, where we're going to talk about issues of leadership such as how to lead an assembly and how to plan dances and how to be role models for students. So I'm going to introduce some of the students we have here tonight, and if you guys will come down here, we'll take a photo. So tonight we have Max Tuttle, who is a senior at Madison High School. He's currently serving as a student representative on the District Boundary Review Committee. We have Katie Davidson, who's a sophomore at Grant High School. We have Skylar Williams, who's a senior at Madison High School. We have Kendall Wilson, who's a senior at Grant High School. She's also one of the student representatives on the District Boundary Review Committee. We have Aaron Moniz, who's a senior at Wilson High School. And then not with us tonight is Claire Mercero, who's a senior at Lincoln High School and serves as a student representative on the Citizens Budget Review Committee. Theodore Motz, who's a senior at Lincoln High School. And Tori Staff, who's a junior at Roosevelt High School. So if we can all take a moment to recognize our student leaders.
That's good. Ready? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Nice to see you here. Good, thanks. See you again. Yep.
So we're really excited for next Thursday, where we'll be hosting our leadership forum. Hopefully we'll put pictures on Facebook so you guys can all see, but it's mostly student driven. So we're having about 50 students from across PPS come, and then we're all hosting it. So it's an exciting event. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, and thank you to all those students who came and for their service. Okay, next on our agenda is public comment. Ms. Houston, I know we have people signed up for public comment.
We have 5.
Okay.
Our first two speakers, Greg Burrow and Sarah Silke.
While these folks are coming up, I'll go ahead and do the instructions for public comment. Thank you for taking the time to attend this meeting and provide your comments to the board. We value public input and we look forward to hearing your thoughts, reflections, and concerns. Our responsibility as a board is to actively listen and reflect on your comments. The board will not respond to any comments or questions during public comment, but we have asked our board manager, Roseanne Powell, who is standing in the back, to follow up on the issues raised during public testimony. Roseanne is available in the back. Guidelines for public comment emphasize respect and consideration of others. Complaints about individual employees should be directed to the superintendent's office as a personnel matter. You have a total of 3 minutes to share your comments. Please start by stating your name and spelling your last name. At that time, the green light will come on and you'll have 2 minutes. When the yellow light comes on, there's 1 minute left. When the red light comes on and the buzzer sounds, we ask that you wrap up your comments, and we respectfully ask you to conclude at that time. We sincerely appreciate your input, and thank you very much for being here this evening.
Okay, my name is Greg Burrill, B-U-R-R-I-L-L, and you know, it's interesting that I wanted to talk about race issues and courageous conversations while downtown people are closing the streets protesting what's going on in Ferguson. And luckily we in Portland don't have that level of problem, but I'm kind of worried about some of the things that are going on. But even though lots of things are very well intentioned, I was in a building not too long ago and I heard from a teacher that they were doing an intervention and they had a picture of every African American child in the school up on the wall. And now it seems like a good thing, except some of these kids were performing at grade level. And the teacher was concerned that there were white kids who aren't performing at grade level who aren't up on that wall. But the point is equity. So I worry when we start doing things like that, what sort of message it sends. And kind of a little related to that, but not much, I've been thinking a lot about what's happened because of 20 years of cuts to Portland Public Schools budget, followed by 3 years of massive cuts. Okay, kids that were in kindergarten in the 2008-2009 school year in the 5th grade now, kids that were in the 1st grade that year in the 6th, and kids who were in the 2nd grade are in the 7th. And so this is when the schools lost massive amounts of support for special ed, for speakers of other languages, and so on and so forth. And I believe that as a substitute teacher, I'm beginning to see the problems created by that as those kids achieve middle school age, because I mostly teach middle and high school. So I'm really worried that as we add money back to our budget, we're not going to find enough to make up for all we didn't do for those kids in those years. So I hope at every chance you have to make a decision about where to spend money, that you do something that will also affect those kids that were so badly left behind during the Great Recession. Thank you very much. That's it for tonight.
Hi, my name is Sarah Silkie, S-I-L-K-I-E. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'd like to start by saying that I really respect the board for tackling the issues of racial and socioeconomic inequities that you've been looking at. And I commend the work that has been done towards educating teachers and allocating resources to close the gap. But as I've read the recommendations presented in the Sackett report and that are being passed on by the superintendent, I can't help but think of the words of the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. Because while very well intentioned, I really think some of these recommendations have the potential to really hurt not just individual families, but the system as a whole in the city of Portland. How many times has the district made well-intentioned changes only to see them backfire with unintended consequences? A petition process is an inherently biased and resource-intensive way of moving people around. Do we really want to pay people to adjudicate petitions, or do we want to pay people to teach? I come to you today to represent not just myself and my children, I do have school-age children, but really to represent the parents who are still dealing with daycare and diapers, because they're the ones who are going to be mostly affected by these decisions. I'm concerned about the changes being proposed and the artificial urgency that these changes have to be made now without a lot of public input or informed debate. I imagine and I sincerely hope that you as the board have already spent a lot of time and done a great deal of research on the topic of school choice and options, because it's a complicated one. And racial equity, while important, is not the only lens to look at this through. And so while the SACRET report is important, it's not the whole picture. As a school board, you can't control demographics. Trying to force people to go where you want is a waste of taxpayer money. It's a waste of your time and your effort. You can control the quality of the teachers. You can control where the resources go. Focus your efforts where they will be effective. And I have to say, to those who would tell concerned parents to look at things as we and ours instead of I and mine, I reply, first, do no harm. The SACRET report concludes that limiting family choices will balance enrollment and transfers, magically improving all of the schools. But is limiting choices really good for the whole school district? Is it really good for the city of Portland? Again, I say first, do no harm. First, let's make all the schools excellent. Otherwise, you're going to reduce capture rates and funding for the entire district. Families that have options will go elsewhere. Don't force them, entice them to your neighborhood schools. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Our next two speakers, Nova Newcomer and David Porter.
Let me say, while she's coming up, I gave copies of this beforehand to Karen, and they're in your yellow folder. They're charts and data.
Thank you, David.
You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Are you ready? Chair Knowles,
Go ahead.
Superintendent Smith, members of the board, members of the public, my name is Dave Porter, P-O-R-T-E-R. Portland Public Schools recently posted online its data from the 2014-15 transfer lottery held last spring. Let me now report to you on the kindergarten applicants for the dual language immersion programs. Note two nuances. First, there are 3 dual language immersion programs, James John, Rigler, and Sitten, that fill their classes only from their neighborhood, so their data is not available with lottery data. And second, the applicant data includes first, second, and third choices when made. As for the data, 1, there is substantial and increasing demand for dual language immersion programs. There were 397 applicants turned away, enough to fill kindergarten classes at 7 additional 2-strand immersion programs. 2, the 397 turned away represent 9.4% of the 2014-15 kindergarten enrollment. Almost 10% of the parents of kindergartners are not getting the immersion programs that they want from PPS. 3, most, 91.7% of the kindergarten applicants turned away were English native students. 4, Spanish is by far the foreign language most in demand for additional immersion programs. 5, the 397 turned away for 2014-15 are an increase from the 370 turned away in 2013-14. 6, 72 English native applicants from the neighborhoods of dual language immersion programs were turned down by the dual language immersion program at their neighborhood school. If the neighborhood applicants had been given priority over out-of-neighborhood applicants, then 46 of those neighborhood applicants could have been admitted. 4 dual language immersions did not fill all their slots and could have admitted more English native students. A, Bridget could have admitted 7 more English native transfer students by filling unfilled Spanish native slots. B, Cesar Chavez could have filled 14 unfilled neighborhood English native and 7 unfilled neighborhood Spanish native slots with 21 out-of-neighborhood English native applicants. C, King could have filled 7 unfilled albino slots and 5 Chinese slots with either neighborhood or transfer applicants. And D, Lentz had 4 unfilled English native neighborhood and 6 unfilled Spanish native neighborhood slots. 7 of those slots could have been filled by out-of-neighborhood English native applicants. And last, Kelly appears from this data to have too few kindergarten applicants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Smith, members of the board, members of the public. My name is Nova Newcomer, Newcomer. I'm a member of the Portland Public Schools community, and my child also attends Chief Joseph Ockley Green in North Portland. School was a lifeline for me in a very difficult and chaotic childhood, so I welcomed the moment when I would enroll my son in school with much anticipation and nostalgia. But instead of the community-affirming experience that I was imagining, I heard instead, if people care about their kids, they will look at their options. I've been to 15 kindergarten roundups. How many did you go to? Are you nervous about school starting today since your son doesn't go to a charter? I don't have much in common with those families. I would have gone to my neighborhood school, but I heard it wasn't safe. I can't believe they are merging these schools. That school is so ghetto. The narrative was set in stone. The community we lived in was less than. Our community and many others within our school district aren't given the benefit of the doubt in a system that currently favors the few, choice for the few over opportunity for the many. The same tone I received when I told people I was choosing to send my son to his neighborhood school has also seeped into this conversation around the Sackett recommendations. And now we are hearing, let's hold off, let's wait, let's slow down. But waiting is what far too many communities in our district have been doing for far too long. School closures, divestment, and policies that have unfairly impacted children and families of color and families in low-income areas, and a context-free, high-performing schools, low-performing schools paradigm have encouraged negative perceptions of school communities to flourish. When Portland Public Schools School Board adopted its racial education equity policy June 13th, 2011, the board accepted some difficult truths about the state of our educational system, and they also accepted to walk down a road that has led us here. In public processes, we often look for demonstration of the abdication of responsibility, and rightfully so. That is not what is happening here. To the contrary, we can point to a very publicly stated timeline of steps from the adoption of the equity policy in 2011 to the enrollment balancing in various clusters in the subsequent years to a resolution following the Jefferson cluster process that was clearly voted on by the board in 2013 that empowered the superintendent's advisory committee on enrollment and transfers to engage directly on this issue. Excerpted the published recitals with the resolution stated, the superintendent directs staff to engage the Sackett committee to review student assignment and transfer policies and expand possible solutions to present enrollment challenges and align with the racial educational equity policy. Superintendent Smith, board, members of the board, you have an opportunity here to continue on the path that this board set in 2011, and it won't be the final step. It's one of many. No one in this room likely meant to be here, to be a possible contributor to an inequitable system. But that is the purpose and power of public institutions, to put into place systems that raise our entire community up. And decades of data show this doesn't happen through goodwill and intent. You have voted to enshrine equity into your approach to schools. Keep up the good work. I urge you to vote for the Sackett recommendations.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Jess Thompson.
Superintendent Smith and board directors, student representative, I just want to thank you for adopting.
Could you go ahead and state your name and spell your last name for the record? Thank you.
Jessica Thompson, THOMPSON.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for adopting the racial educational equity policy. I know that we're a leader in the country, and in Portland, a very liberal white city, race is something that we don't have real honest conversations about very often. And as painful as a lot of these conversations have been, and as divisive as a lot of the conversations about enrollment and transfer have been, I think that they're pushing us forward. And I believe that in the not so distant future, the steps that you will take to change the enrollment and transfer policies as they exist now to support all of our children are going to do so much good, not only for neighborhood schools, but for the health of our city. I was at a Jefferson cluster listening session last week, and I heard Margaret Calvert she was talking about the health of Jefferson High School, and she said something like, I believe the success of Oregon depends on the outcome of Jefferson High School. And I also believe that. And I believe a lot of the people that are against the process moving forward are new to this conversation. But I believe that as they engage more and they look at the data more and they listen to the stories more, they are going to come to the same conclusion that my husband and I have come to over the course of 17 years in Jefferson Cluster. We have to do this. It's for the benefit of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank everybody. Thank you all for your comments, and if you need to, please feel free to connect with Roseanne Powell, our board manager, who is now standing in the back of the room. So thanks again. Okay, our contract with Portland Association of Teachers allows them time on our agenda when requested, and I'd like to ask the president, Gwen Sullivan, to the table for some brief comments this evening. Welcome.
Thank you. I come to you tonight just with some questions. I know that I get the board packet, and so I go through it as quickly as I can to see what's going on. So sometimes I don't really know if I'm going to be coming or not. So bear with me. I know that when you get to the principal support and evaluation, I know there's nothing you're going to vote on, but there are some things that I would like you to ponder yourself and maybe ask questions around. First of all, as I was talking to some of the people in the district office after I saw this around the administrator evaluation, there were some things that actually included teachers. And I know that when they come up here, they will clearly state that that was unintended. And so when you get into your packet, when it says teacher and administrators, such as in the goal setting template for administrators and student learning goals, it states that the rubric applies to both teachers and administrator evaluation. They'll tell you that it's going to be changed to just to administration evaluation. So that got changed after we talked about it. The other thing is you'll see in the document that it talks about it refers to educators even when they're talking in regard to administrators, and in our contract it says professional educators. When we see educators, we think about our teachers, our speech paths, our bargaining unit group, and so I was told that that will also be changed. Instead of it reading educator, it will be changed to administrator. So I just think that's important to know. Some other things that concerned us was around the third grade reading measurement for administrators. And of course, we don't represent administrators, but some of the things that it said is all third grade teachers will measure the reading by Dibbles, and by Easy CBM would be for the older grades. But this is something we've had numerous conversations in our instructional professional council with Carol, with Melissa, and it's been over a number of years that Dibbles is one option that can be used and does not have to be used. So there's some discrepancy in that. We would argue that maybe a better measurement of student, what they're reading would be how many books are the third grade, checking out in their library from year to year, or how many kids are involved with battle. There's so many different things. There's running records. And the teachers are not just using Dibble. Some of them aren't using it at all. other things that came up was around the administrators in their monthly check-ins. It talks about disproportionate discipline. And I think it puts the administrators in a bind when they feel this sense of urgency, which it is urgent to lower our numbers, but without any solutions becomes the problem. And last week when we had our rep assembly, we had over 150 teachers there, and we meet in our clusters and we talk about what's happening in the clusters. And the one thing came up at one of the clusters, it was that there's no discipline happening, that nobody's following through on referrals, suspension, expulsion. Those things are not being followed through, but not just not followed through, there's no consequence at all, whether it's counseling or, something to help the students. And so I think part of that comes from, my guess is that it comes from wanting to lower numbers, but not having the supports at the building level to actually follow through with some sort of consequences. And I do think it puts our administrators in a bind. And when I heard from the first cluster that talked about that it was an issue, I did to the rest of the clusters, is anybody else having these? Every single cluster that follow through is not, there hasn't been a follow through, which when you look at, you want to see data, your data is only as good as what's being really required of what's happening in the schools. So, and then we look at it as if you have kids that are really needing some help, but there's no consequence, whether that consequence is getting help, counseling, not pushing them out, but actually working with them, then it actually exacerbates the school to prison pipeline. Because if they are learning that it's okay to be this way in school, then why isn't it okay to be this way in society? So it's some things to think about when you're putting evaluations for administrators and how it directly affects the school environment. And I think that's it. And I'm sorry that it was last minute, but I got it last minute, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to get you to think about some things when you're looking at this. Thanks.
Thank you very much for being here this evening. Okay, next on our agenda is a presentation of the superintendent's recommendations on enrollment and transfer. Last week, the superintendent presented us with a timeline for consideration of the enrollment and transfer policy. Superintendent Smith, would you like to present your recommendations now on the policy?
I would. And actually, I'll start by just actually referring back to one of the pieces of testimony, which referenced our methodical process of aligning all of our major systems and policies with the racial educational equity policy. So back in 2011, the board passed that policy, and we have been working since that time to really look at how we function in every aspect of our business. So how we allocate resources, our workforce, and who we hire. So we also passed an affirmative action policy and have an affirmative action plan that is looking at how we're having a workforce that mirrors or reflects the composition of our student body. Our business practices, so we passed a policy that looks at equity in public purchasing and contracting and looks at who and how we do our business in the community. Portland Public Schools did not previously have an MWESB or a Minority Women and Emerging Small Businesses policy. Prior to this policy, less than 2% of our business was conducted with minority, women, or emerging small businesses. We set a target of 18%. It's now up to 11%. Hugely significant once we had passed a bond. And we're set to do a significant amount of financial business in the community, that we set that as a goal. And the policy that we're looking at here, this has also been about just how each one of us does our jobs and how we make our decisions. We have a racial equity lens tool that's really about decision making, at looking at any decision that gets made, who is impacted, and just trying to be very methodical about asking those questions. It's looking about what's happening in our classrooms, but also what's happening in every aspect of how we do business as an organization. So when we were looking at our enrollment transfer policies and getting ready to embark on a boundary review process, which we used to do cluster by cluster. So you've heard reference to during the Jefferson enrollment balancing process in the Jefferson cluster. We went through looking at just the schools in that cluster and eventually hit, and this has happened over and over, when we've done cluster-wide, you eventually hit the conversation where you've engaged this whole community. Some of your solutions then start to look like they're connected to the next cluster. So it's not all contained within one cluster. We really knew we had to look at the district as a whole in terms of boundaries. And then second to that, we needed to look at our enrollment and transfer policies. So one of the things that came out of the Jefferson enrollment balancing process was a conversation with the board to embark on a district-wide boundary review, but also look at our enrollment and transfer policies. So what you will see tonight, and I'm going to actually do here first, the context for this is the resolution, which was in February of 2013 that the board passed, number 4718, where the board directed the staff to develop and recommend a process for a comprehensive review of school boundaries district-wide and policies related to student assignment and transfer to better align with the racial educational equity policy to promote strong capture rates and academic programs at every grade level. Secondly, the superintendent directs staff to engage the Superintendent's Advisory Committee on Enrollment and Transfer, SACIT, to review student assignment and transfer policies, identify opportunities to address broader citywide demographic shifts and boundaries, and expand possible solutions to present enrollment challenges, and align with the racial educational equity policy. So SACIT was convened, and actually SACIT's been in existence for a number of years. So going back 5 years, they were active during high school system design at really looking at how we were balancing enrollment across our high schools. It was reconvened and new members added specifically for this process 18 months ago. And the reason I want to say a little bit more about this, because I praise them every time we are in this conversation, but it was a diverse group of stakeholders who applied to be on this committee. They met more than 60 times over the 18 months, went through deep education individually and collectively about how our enrollment and transfer policies work, what our demographic patterns are like, what have been the impact of those policies over time in terms of how students access our programs. They did not hold opinions in common when they started. So one of the things that is important is part of what they did is engage in really very honest dialogue about what they understood, about what they were seeing, wrestled with each other. There were moments where I thought there is no way we're going to end up with something coherent at the end of this because they're all over the map. So the fact that they ended this process with recommendations to me that were unanimous, they wrestled those things to the ground. They also held hearings and brought in panels of educators who represent different kinds of programs in our system. They listened to parents who have accessed all the different kinds of programs in our system. They would come back and say, okay, we believe these are perspectives we have not yet heard that we need to hear in order to be able to put forth recommendations that really make sense. So the kind of wrestling that went on with this group of people, really trying to understand from the multiple perspectives represented in this district in order to make recommendations, very powerful for me in then saying, okay, thank you. For going through and doing that kind of work and really working to represent this community and putting recommendations forth to me. So a different process than we've used and a really, what I believe was a really thorough and had meaning to me as I received those recommendations. Okay, so tonight, those recommendations came to me on November 4th. They were also then presented to the board so the board could hear directly from SACIT what their process was and what the recommendations were. What we are doing tonight, I am presenting the proposed changes that I am going to forward to the board. I'm going to go through and detail the process the board will then go through in listening, deliberating, and deciding, and all the ways that the community then gets to weigh in on what you hear tonight. But tonight's purpose is really presenting the proposals, and then opportunity for clarifying questions. Okay, so one of the overarching things that I'm going to say to begin with, largely because many questions in terms of how you listen to the whole rest of the body of the proposals, the recommendation that I'm putting forth to the board is that any of these policy changes only apply to future transfer requests, and that students who have transferred via the lottery in past years stay in their current school or program through the highest grade. So that's an important thing as you're listening to the rest of these. I'm not recommending that we do a wholesale, everybody's moving around. We're holding stability for kids where they are through to the highest grade, and these recommendations would apply in the next transfer cycle, so coming up this February, for students who are looking to change this February. So the first proposal is about neighborhood-to-neighborhood transfers, and the recommendation I'm putting forward to the board is to end lottery transfers into neighborhood schools and to apply this change in policy to all grade levels. So when Sackett put forth the recommendation, we had asked them specifically to deal with pre-K-8 because we previously addressed how were students moving between the high schools. What I'm saying is that I would expand the recommendation to include all grade levels and expand the Sackett recommendation to also include high schools. Second was the proposal to strengthen the petition transfer system. So that is still available as a way to transfer anywhere in our system. And the first would be to add the staff capacity to manage expected increase in petitions. And we've got predictions about how many students use the lottery process, how many use the petition process currently, and we'd be able to extrapolate what we believe would be the expected increase. 3, to provide additional training for staff to improve cultural awareness and skill in utilizing the petition process. 4, to improve the system to track and report trends in transfer requests, both to improve neighborhood schools with high volume of requests to transfer out of them, as well as learn from the schools that are generating a high volume of interest. The next section is about focus options and alternative program review. So one of the things that Sackett said is we actually have a really decent educational options policy already in place. And what we have not done is what that calls for is the regular review of those focus options. And so basically this recommendation is to initiate a regular focus option review following our existing policy. What I'm also recommending in here is that we expand the Sackett recommendations to include our district-operated alternative schools as well, so Access and Metropolitan Learning Center. And also to identify successful programs for potential replication. This is something that's been identified previously, and as we've been in the dramatic budget cutting environment that we've been in, it's not been an environment in which we've been looking at really starting new programs. I think this is something, as we're doing our district-wide boundary review and looking at programs that have high demand, what are ones that we would want to replicate and where would we want to replicate them. Again, 6, establish an ongoing evaluation and support system for our focus option schools. And 7, look at the facility siting as part of our district-wide boundary review. One of the things the educational options policy calls for is an awareness of where educational options are sited, what's their availability in various parts of the city, how do they impact the neighborhood schools around them, and as part of our district-wide boundary review, we would be looking specifically at that. So the next section was really about improving access to our focus option schools. This recommendation is to continue to increase focus option outreach to historically underserved communities. And again, when I say continue, we've been doing good outreach around our dual language immersion programs and would continue to make that stronger. Our focus options have previously been restricted in how they can market and build awareness of their programs. So this is what basically saying we would do intentional outreach. 9, increase the lottery preference to focus option programs for students who qualify for free or reduced price meals or Head Start. And this does not include Sackett's recommendation to also do a geographic balancing. So, and I will say, hang on, I'll show you. So this is what the new preference would be, and it puts the students who qualify for free and reduced meals or Head Start program above students whose sibling is enrolled in the student's first choice elementary, middle school, or high school, or a program that includes other school grade groupings. What it does not do is now also include a geographic balancer, and I'm going to show you a little bit more of the data of why I chose one and let go of the other. And I will say that a lot of the testimony that we've heard and the concern we've heard is about the co-enrolled siblings and what impact does this have on co-enrolled siblings. So I will show that to you in just a second. The note at the bottom says that these changes will not apply to two-way dual language immersion programs or the new King Mandarin immersion program, because the lottery rules for those programs already have factors that take into consideration serving historically underserved populations and consider native language requirements. So, okay, what you have here, the blue bar on the bottom, this represents the focus option lottery applicant pool. Each one of those bars represents one of our focus option programs. So you've got Buckman, Creative Science, Odyssey, Richmond, Sunnyside, Winter Haven, and Da Vinci across the bottom. The blue bar represents the part of the applicant pool, which are students who qualify for free and reduced meals. So you can see that's a fairly small group at this moment. So that's what we're looking to increase. The red bar represents co-enrolled siblings, and the green represents everyone else. So that's more just to give you a sense of who is applying to our focus option programs and why are we looking to diversify the applicant pool. And then you see the blue line across there is the district average of students who qualify for free and reduced meals. One of the things when we're looking at having programs actually represent or be consistent with who's in the district overall, 75, and hang on just a second, I gotta find this one, 75% of the students in our focus option programs are white, and 18% qualify for free and reduced lunch. The actual district-wide population, 45% of our students are students of color, and 45% of our students are students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. So we're looking to have those be more, reflect each other, and that our whole district is reflected in who's actually getting to access our focus option programs. Okay, this one, you look at these bars in pairs. So like this first two right here is Buckman, second two are Creative Science, next one is Odyssey, the next pair is Richmond, following next pair is Sunnyside, Winter Haven, and Da Vinci. What you've got is bar number one in each of those pairs are the actual approvals in the lottery, okay? This one, the second bar, is modeling if we put free and reduced lunch first and then siblings, okay? So what you get first looking here is here's the difference of who would be admitted if we prioritize free and reduced lunch, okay? So you just get that visual. What happens to the co-enrolled siblings here is it's exactly the same. So this is 41%, and that's 40% who are admitted given the change. But you've significantly increased the number of free and reduced price meal qualifying students who have been admitted. Same with the next one. You got co-enrolled siblings 30% and 29%, but your increase in the number of students who are free and reduced price meal qualifying students has dramatically increased. Co-enrolled siblings in the next pair, 31%, but an increase there. 37, increase down here in the blue bars. 39 with the co-enrolled siblings, but an increase. So you're getting my drift. So you're basically getting to really increase free and reduced price lunch qualifying students significantly, but not dramatically negatively impacting co-enrolled siblings, okay? You tracking me here? I'm just looking for nods in the audience, which I'm seeing. Okay, terrific. That's what I'm hoping for. What happens if you end up adding the geographic balancer? It dramatically impacts that, and it's not clear that the geographic balancer has the same effect in terms of really diversifying the student pool. Okay, this one is going to be a little harder to track here because you're looking at tiny little numbers, but what this is Richmond over a 6-year period. And what you're seeing here is, here are actual approvals right here, and here are what if we did the simulation of doing the new lottery preference. And hang on, I got to look for my smaller numbers up here. Okay, so what you've got here in the first one is in the actual approvals. Where's my little red guy? There you go, right there. So you have 66 students right here who would have been admitted who are economically disadvantaged in the actuals right here. If you do the new simulation, it's 105 students. What happens to co-enrolled siblings with the new modeling? Over here, co-enrolled siblings 243, over on the new modeling 243, over a 6-year period. So you end up with essentially the same number of co-enrolled siblings, but a significantly higher number. So we did, this is modeling for, and it's the same pattern. Richmond, you've got it over 6 years. Da Vinci, you've got it over the 3 years of its existence as a program, and your difference here between co-enrolled siblings in both with the actual approvals and with the modeling, 38, but the difference between our economically disadvantaged students who are getting in 79 in the actual approvals with the new model 145. So it was really to illustrate the thing we've heard the most concern about is how does this impact co-enrolled siblings. We've heard this from all communities of this matters to us, to have the ability to have our kids in the same school. This weighting change, we believe, holds a good value on co-enrolled siblings, but it increases the number of students who are free and reduced lunch qualifying for getting into these programs. Okay, so that's the main thing I wanted you to see. Oh, sorry, this one's 9 years of Winter Haven data, same pattern. Okay, the 10th one is basically, I just wanted to express appreciation for SACIT's endorsement of PPS's plan to continue to expand offerings of and access to dual language immersion programs. Really successful strategy. We added 4 new dual language immersion programs this year. We're in the process of doing the feasibility study on a group that will come forward during the next budget cycle. And so they'll be presented in January. Those will include transportation plans. And the one recommendation I am adding as part of this is to recommend increasing the percentage of slots reserved for native speakers at Ainsworth and Richmond specifically, which are the 2 one-way immersion programs. Last year, for the first time, those both had a 15% set of slots reserved for native language speakers. The dual language immersion department will do an assessment of where's the demand for the folks who are accessing and suggest a percentage of slots to be reserved for native language speakers in the coming lottery cycle. And then finally, the final recommendation was to improve service for students with special needs. And frequently, our students with special needs end up with a referral to a program other than their neighborhood school. And when they are exited out of special ed, they end up going back to their neighborhood school. This change would allow them to have the option to stay at the school that they were receiving services, because that's where they've built community. And so in an effort to really reinforce and allow continuity of service for those students, it's adjusting the policy to allow them to stay at the school where they've been receiving services after they exit and are back in general education. So that's the 11th one. Okay, so public process. What the school board, this now moves from me to the school board. So the board will, and with the things I just went through with you, some of them were about policy change, and there's actually a draft of what those policy changes would be that was distributed to the board and is available, and should be available back here. So it's the policy language they'll be considering. Some of the other things I just put forward are specific recommendations to be included in a budget amendment in January, because they're things that would be to be implemented in this enrollment and transfer cycle, have to happen quickly, and others that would happen in the next budget process for the coming year. There'll be 5 public meetings to listen, deliberate, and decide, and I'm going to take you through the specifics of how each one of them will be structured. And then there's also an online survey and ability to do narrative public comment on the policy itself. So the first of the board public processes is a school board town hall about enrollment and transfer changes specifically, and it's the hour prior to the board town hall that was to be held at Jefferson on the same day. So it's Monday, December 1st. And the board has been out doing town halls in every cluster. So this was the one that was scheduled for the Jefferson cluster, and we're expanding it to start an hour earlier to hear testimony and have dialogue specifically about enrollment and transfer changes. So it's from 5 to 6 at Jefferson High School. This one will be open dialogue. So there was a request to be able to have a back and forth so people can ask questions, have discussion with the board, and we're asking SACIT members to attend this one and be available so that their reflections can be included in that as well. We then have a series of school board meetings on Tuesday, December 2nd, from 5:30 to 6. Open testimony on enrollment and transfer recommendations specifically. So this is a hearing that will be, ability to come up and provide comments, testimony to the board, only on enrollment and on these recommendations. Then at 6, when we start the regular meeting, there will be the normal opportunity for testimony that are the regular slots available at the beginning of a board meeting. And interpretation will be provided in all of those languages: Chinese, Russian, Somali, Spanish, and Vietnamese. On Tuesday, December 9th, which is officially the first reading of the policy, meaning the board will have dialogue and they'll be looking at it and making recommendations for changes or what they want to move forward with, what not. So that's what the board business that night. From 6 to 6:30, we'll again have open testimony on the enrollment and transfer recommendations, and then at 6:30, the regular public comment period. And again, interpretation provided. On Tuesday, January 6th at 6 p.m., we will have the regular public comment that's part of a board meeting. On Tuesday, January 13th at 6 p.m., regular public comment, but at that meeting is the board's second reading of the policy. We will also have opportunity for online public comments, open for 21 days beginning December 9th. And the policy will be posted on the PPS board website. The online survey is already up, and with less than 24 hours, we already had 10,568 people who opened the email saying, here are the policy changes. And we've had 545 people already respond to the survey, so less than 24 hours, just saying. Hot topic there.
Who's winning?
Huh? No, I haven't looked at the content yet. I just looked at the numbers of people responding. But that's open through December 23rd on our website. Yeah.
Everybody who votes wins.
Okay, and this is all just data that's extra data for the board. So with that, it's over to you.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Smith. I appreciate that.
I'm going to you heard in my comments the appreciation for the SACIT committee. I'm going to just say that one more time. They did a phenomenal job at putting together really thoughtful recommendations, and I'm moving forward most of those. There's one that I really just didn't do, which was the geographic piece, application in the focus option lottery, and then I've added some additional ones, but I largely really appreciated and relied on the work of that committee as I was putting together what recommendations I'm moving forward. So again, SACIT, thank you so much for your work.
Okay. Just a couple of clarifications or additional comments regarding the board's public process. As the superintendent mentioned, there is a town hall at Jefferson High on the 1st from 5 to 6, town hall format. On the public comment on the 2nd and on the 9th for the half an hour before the board meeting, those opportunities for public comment are 2 minutes apiece, and then our regular public comments are still 3 minutes as they always are. We're just trying to get as many people in as we possibly can. to those things. So, and then the other addition was on the 13th, we have a public comment period, but then we also have public comment right before the vote. So there's 12 opportunities, and those are all 3-minute opportunities there. So I just wanted to be clear with people, because I know sometimes people prepare their testimony and then time themselves to make sure they're going to be within, and so I wanted to make sure that everybody understood the time for those, and those will all be up on the website as well. So,
Director Knowles, can I ask?
and thank you for everybody who is going to comment, and for all of you who have, the 10,000 of you who have already opened the website, and the 500 of you who have already given us your opinions, and I hope that everybody else will do the same.
I was just curious, do people have to call to sign up on the second?
They do on the public comment,
Okay.
the 3-minute
For the-
public comments
but
that come
not the
before a
2-minute?
meeting, just like, no.
Okay.
Just come.
I think we'll just come and
You sign in at the.
everybody comes.
Yep, come sign in at the.
So let me just, hang on.
Okay. It was on specifically. what you
Sorry,
wanted.
okay, well, just a second here. So one other thing, I just want to remind my colleagues that this opportunity tonight for us is to clarify with the superintendent anything that's within the PowerPoint and the other things that she's given to us. We're going to have lots and lots of opportunity for us to have discussions back and forth about the enrollment and transfer policies and the changes to that. But the meeting tonight is just for us to do clarifying questions. So with that, who has clarifying question? Director Buell.
Are we going to answer the 543 people with a specific answering of their questions and outlining what they have to say and giving them feedback of our 10,000? Because it seems to me that that's what we're missing in our public process here. We have several instances where people can come for 2 minutes and talk, but we have an hour where people can come and ask questions and we respond. An hour? I did an hour and almost 2 hours myself at Roosevelt on the Roosevelt stuff. We need more than an hour to have people come and respond, in my opinion, and to talk. I suggested last week that we have 3 large public meetings that allow for dialogue. We'll have SACA people there, the board there, have administrators there who can answer questions, and we can dialogue back and forth. We could ask people questions, they could ask us questions, on and on and on, and it might go late into the evening. I don't know. It just seems to me that that's true public process, and we're kind of short of this on this particular plan.
So I'm going to actually ask John Isaacs, who was our Community Involvement and Public Affairs person, to come on up, but I will say we'll use the information from the different forums in ways to make it all visible, and people will respond in the way that they feel most comfortable communicating with us, but I'm going to let John talk a little.
Maybe I can add on to what I asked. I've received.
Let me let John
add on, and maybe
first,
he can
and then
respond
you
to
can-
the whole thing.
Let's
That would
just do
probably
one at
be-
a time.
Oh,
Let's do
okay.
one at a time.
All right, fine, John.
Let's not pile
Respond
on
to the
here.
first
No
one.
piling on.
Why we're not allowing people to have more input in dialogue. That would be good.
So, well, I can address 2 things. I can't address it's the board's decision in terms of what public comment you're going to allow and your interactions with the public. I can say that the board just finished 9 hours of town hall meetings, and there's one more after the enrollment and transfer. So the whole board has been out doing really successful town hall meetings. We've had over 400 people attend the town halls, and it's been open to any topic that anyone wanted to bring up, and it's been varied and it's been diverse, and they've been really successful. In terms of the survey is not designed for us to do responses. It's anonymous. It tracks IP addresses, so someone can't vote 20 times in the survey, but it isn't a survey where people send in their email and then we get the email and we write back. If we did that, we would have far less participation because it wouldn't be anonymous anymore. It's a survey to track views of those who participated in it, so we won't be able to do that. We will be able to do that through the open board. The opportunities for people to continue to email the board, to email the superintendent, to provide comment through the board website during the public comment period. All of those emails, it's our standard practice to do responses, and we work with Roseanne Powell, who's the board manager, to make sure everyone gets a reply who writes the board, and then we work with the superintendent staff to make sure we reply to every email that comes into her. In terms of the amount of additional public process you have, that's, we'll support the decisions the board makes to the fullest of our staff ability and resources.
You don't have a,
Thank you.
you don't have a recommendation for us? I mean, are you recommending only an hour worth of dialogue out of the?
It's not
the
staff's
community-
recommendation,
community
Director
that's
Buell,
not?
it's the board leadership that put this together.
I will say I
Director
did
Atkins?
recommend, I just want to say I did recommend, and you all decided to do the town halls. They've been really successful, and again, you just finished 9 hours of town hall meetings that have been great, and those have been open to any topic that any attendee wanted to bring up.
Been great. Director Atkins?
Yeah, so really just to piggyback on that, I think the other piece too, in addition to the added-on special session before the Jefferson Town Hall specifically on this topic, that of course the town hall itself immediately follows, and that again is an open format, so whoever shows up, they can, we're going to rely on, I think Director Morton's the host that evening, so what we've been doing is sort of the host in that high school area has just been making sure that folks take turns so everyone has a chance to speak, but that can be, again, if that's what everyone who shows up wants to talk about, then the conversation can continue during that, so I'm looking forward to that.
Director Regan?
So when does the survey end, and at what point or stage here will we discuss the results?
So we, in there we said we'll close it December 23rd, so 2 days before Christmas, and we will continue to promote it through multiple e-blasts to the community, so it won't be just the one time. We'll do it on a weekly basis until it closes. And then I think we can provide the results and however you would like them provided after we return from the holiday break. So January 6th board meeting, we can do that, no
and I
problem.
think it's a pretty straightforward format, so it's one that should be fairly easy to report out percentages.
Yeah.
Is it on the web?
It is, it's a Google survey, so we're using our PPS Google apps, and it's available through the enrollment and transfer website. We'll also feature it on the front page through the end of the year as well.
Well, can we get it on the front page tonight or tomorrow? Or?
Yeah.
I mean, I just looked for it. I didn't receive an email, so I wanted to go.
Got to sign up for those emails.
Yeah.
Well, I think I am. But is there any reason not to have it on the front page?
No, we'll get it up on the front page right away.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So the e-blast went out at end of the day yesterday.
You know how people hate to click through things.
I'm sorry,
Yeah, I may have got, you're right, I may have gotten an email.
I will say we have one of the highest participation rates of any email list that I am aware of. We regularly have 30 to 40% of our emails read as a district, which is extremely high.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
I'm sorry, just add another
Director
point
Atkins.
as well. So the other piece too we talked about in terms of our December 2nd agenda is that's again the opportunity for the board to ask questions, reflect back some of the many concerns, questions, issues that we may have heard, and have the opportunity for dialogue with staff as well as with SACA members who are able to attend. So that'll be another opportunity for the public to kind of observe that dialogue and our discussion and deliberation. So that's a really important opportunity as well.
Okay. Thank you, John.
What about my other decision?
Did you have another question?
Yes, I did.
Director Buell? Excuse me, one more.
Yes.
Maybe.
I've gotten 200 emails from people, most of which I've read pretty close to. Sometimes when they look the same, I'll maybe skip down to answer to all, but I get a couple, 6 or 7 left sitting out there that I didn't have time to answer today. I've answered them all, but the one thing that I have not been able to do is to ask those people specific questions in a time frame that made sense. And we haven't been able to do that. Nobody here has been able to ask those people questions about their opinions and what they think and how that works. It's dialogue, and it seems to me like that's something that's missing from our PR thing. We're going to have a survey. I think it's wonderful. I've got tons of emails. I think it's wonderful. But it's not the same as sitting and saying, okay, tell us why you think that, or for us to explain why we think this. And in my opinion, it's something that we've had trouble with for years now, and that's what I'd like to see more of. That's why I'd like to see more of it, because it doesn't work very well to just listen to what you have to say, because really I'm not listening if I can't ask you any questions. I'm not listening really to you. So thank you. That's my opinion on that.
So thank you, Director Buell. What I would say is, in my experience of 20 plus years of doing community organizing and community involvement, is that people have different preferences for how they want to engage, and what we're trying to do here is offer multiple ways for people to find their comfort level for expressing their view on this and other important topics. So some people are very comfortable coming to a town hall and having direct dialogue with the board. Some people are more comfortable coming here and knowing they're going to have a statement to read to you, and that's comfortable. Some people would rather not be seen at any of those meetings, but they're very comfortable sending you all or the superintendent or me an email. Some people just want to fill out a survey. The survey takes about a minute to do, and so what we're simply trying to do is provide as many possible ways to meet the different ways people want to share their view. And I believe that the plan that the superintendent did does that in the timeline that meets certain operational deadlines that we need to hit.
Thank you very much for making my case. I really appreciate it, because you laid out 5 things, 4 of which we're doing very good and 1 of which we're not doing well at all. And so we're saying, if you really want to come and ask questions, get responses, don't bother us. But if that's the 5th part, the one where we have 1 hour for people. Now, if there weren't more than an hour, fine. But
well,
my
again,
guess is that a lot of people would like to come that way. So that's where I appreciate you making my case, John. That is really good.
Well, again, you and your colleagues, and I really commend you for this, just finished 9 hours of town hall meetings that were open to any comment, any issue that any attendee wanted to bring up.
SACRA report has come out tonight. Yeah. No one really knew what the superintendent was going to do, so you couldn't really ask a question. At my Roosevelt Town Hall thing about the SACRA report, how is the superintendent going to deal with these questions that really aren't up on the paper? So I'd love to have had the SACRA report then, and we could have gone another hour, but actually that was cut off in the end, right? Because I was over anyhow trying to do it, which is difficult for me, I guess.
Great. So we will, like, as we have said, have an hour specifically for the SACIT recommendations at Jefferson, and then another hour and a half for people to speak about whatever they want. So maybe 2.5 hours of town hall. And I believe we have another town hall at Cleveland coming up, where there's also the opportunity for anybody to come. There'll be an hour and a half of town hall opportunity there too. So, and I just want to say that when people come forward to testify, I listen to everything you have to say, and I consider it the whole time. Director Atkins?
So can we move on to clarifying questions?
Clarifying questions.
So thanks. So one question, just to try and understand a little bit better. So in terms of the immediate piece is the policy, and I appreciate getting the red line and being able to look at that. And but in terms of the other pieces, so obviously it's been said all along, and it's absolutely true that this is just one lever. There's lots more pieces, both technical and just developmental, on how we have to change our practice and improve our schools and all the rest. So, but just in terms of the budget pieces that would go along with this will be coming later, or soon, but not in this immediate. We're really focusing here on this policy.
You're focusing on the policy. And I indicated in the memo that I wrote to you, here are the things that are policy, here are the things that I'm aware of that would most probably be in a budget amendment in January, because we would need them in the next enrollment and transfer cycle. Largely what we're doing to shore up the petition system to have it be able to handle a larger request for petitions. And then things that would be considered in the next budget cycle, such as expansion of the DLI programs.
Right.
I mean, so that's it's
right. And then, but then also ongoing conversation around the pieces. I mean, things like transportation, and if we're wanting to be able to support access for more families, how could that work? And balancing that, obviously, tough trade-offs that would require, and citing all those other pieces.
Correct.
So what I'm hearing is, and what I understanding is that this is an ongoing discussion with lots of moving parts. But right now we're focusing on this one.
We're focused on the policy. And the decision making is largely, this process is largely addressing the policy. Correct.
Other clarifying questions?
Go ahead,
Me. Director Egan?
Hi. So Superintendent, I think you did a great job of coming forward with the recommendation. And in general, I'm pretty pleased with it. In terms of some questions that I would have, One of the questions, one of the things that some folks in the community have said to me is there's a reason that we started a lottery process. And in that it tended to appear to be unbiased. You couldn't game the system. And I guess I'd like to have a short presentation on why we started a lottery process when we did, what we were hoping to accomplish with that, and how we will avoid any of those concerns going forward in the new petition process. So one of the things that I think you've indicated is that you're going to be coming up with criteria for the petition process, and so we don't have the benefit of seeing that yet. But I think it would just be helpful to get some comfort around ensuring that the petition process is a really fair process, especially since we clearly have some trust issues with some in our community. So I just wanted to get a little bit on that. I have talked to David Williams, our legislative policy person, again about the fact that this proposal and the changes to the lottery don't impact our charter schools at all. And so we still have all of these essentially focused schools out there that are going to just be doing their own thing and based on, I guess, the state lottery. And whether or not there's any opportunity for us to say to the state, here's our goals, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and is there any opportunity to, see if we can have our charter schools using a similar kind of a process so that we're sure that it is serving again, perhaps a student body that we aren't serving as well ourselves. That is the intention of charter schools. So I don't know if there would be any opportunities or not, but I'd love to see about that. I have questions on your proposal overview where you talk about the preferences and how the preferences would work out. You have a asterisk that says the changes will not apply to two-way dual language immersion programs or the new King Mandarin immersion program, which is more of a one-way program still at this point. As lottery rules for those programs already have factors that take into consideration serving historically underserved populations. So I'm not sure why we would want to start off with a process that has two different processes and why we wouldn't attempt to merge those. Again, I don't think we're not supposed to be getting answers tonight.
Clarifying one, and that sounds like a clarifying question, which Judy, I'm going to ask her to come on up and do it. And you want me to put up the dual language immersion slide? So.
Oh, okay. I thought we were just supposed to get our questions out.
No, well, this one is a good clarifying question about what's the difference and why. So go for it, Judy.
Okay, so this slide is meant to illustrate the different types of programs that are in dual languages and the features that are already in the lottery now. So what Sackett looked at was which programs have factors in place that are intentionally identifying recruiting in a lottery that allows easy access for or preferred access for historically underserved students. So, so we have one-way programs, we have two-way programs, and the difference between the two is whether they have a significant preference for their native speakers. And so where you have more than a third of your students who are native speakers, which are the two-way programs, they're reserving between a third and a half of their slots for native speakers, and you can see the list in the lower, I guess, right corner of all of the schools that that follow that model because they already have a preference in place through the lottery that's meeting these goals. We didn't see an advantage to applying a different preference for them at this time. So we already have a very complicated set of lottery factors, and Sackett's proposal doesn't undo or change all of them. It keeps ones in place that appear to be working to provide equitable access, and it addresses schools that didn't have factors like that in place, including the two one-way immersion programs, Ainsworth Spanish and Richmond Japanese, who have very small set-asides for native Spanish speakers now, and other focus option programs that are unique curriculum but not dual language.
So I have a follow-up.
Sure, go ahead.
So in the two-way, how are we dealing with the sibling preference as it relates to native speakers and non-native speakers?
In every lottery category, for every school that goes in the lottery, siblings have priority. So,
So we're
whether it's a
keeping-
one-way program or a two-way program, even in a one-way program, they have a small set aside, 15% of the slots for a native Spanish speaker. The first students who get those 15% are siblings. The other 85% is not language dependent. The first kids who get access to those 85% are siblings. So siblings rise to the top of every single bucket in every single lottery now. What we've found though is over time, there isn't enough weight for other students. There isn't another like balancing mechanism like there is in the dual language programs where they can find native speakers who we know in many cases are historically underserved students, both because of language and because of economic status and race. So they have another mechanism in place that's doing that. That's not true for all schools though, all focus options.
Other clarifying questions?
So, I'm not
Director
sure.
Regan?
I'm not sure that I'm still satisfied with this answer because I guess I'm trying to understand if you took these schools and you put them under the new petition process, do we think there would be any harm done? I mean, why wouldn't we just have one system?
Right.
So clarify not the petition process, but the
If
preference.
if we take these schools
one
and we
process.
put them under the new process, will any harm be done?
So,
Why do we want to have two processes still?
So we're not actually having two processes. So when you look at your preferences, which I know you have a slide on this.
Yes.
What you'll be looking at for policy doesn't break this down by these groups. We're describing the impact for you by groups and by schools so that families and schools can see where impact is. But the preferences that you're being asked to recognize, to add into policy would apply to all of the schools that are in the lottery. We just think that there's already mechanisms in place that will achieve them by virtue of the language buckets.
Because isn't part of it that to have a two-way program, you need the 50-50, so that's why you have a set-aside for native speakers that's specific to a two-way immersion.
These aren't two-way, these are just one-way.
I'm just talking about the need to have, because if we had just the overall preferences that you're recommending for the two-way programs, then we wouldn't be getting at the native speaker balance. That's one piece of it, why there needs to be a difference.
I guess I'd prefer the bullet to say something like in two-way language immersion programs, there's also going to be a set aside for native speakers. I don't understand why we're saying that these schools would be exempt from. So I guess I would just like you to come back and think that through a little bit more.
Gotcha.
No, that's all.
We'll take that one. Yep. Enough clarifying. That was good. Thank you.
And then I had one other quick question, which is for Richmond and Ainsworth. If we reserve additional spots for native speakers, which is a good goal, we don't even know how many spots we would be reserving for yet, but my question is, do we have a simulation in terms of whether or not that would impact sibling preference?
So that's what I've asked DLI to provide for us. So they're
And
going to
they'll do that as we go, so we'll have that before.
They're
we
going to
vote?
give us that as part of the recommendation. Yeah,
That sounds great.
So we decided don't just make up
Oh,
really.
I thought that would be like some other
No.
time, but it'll be during this process.
We'll do
Great.
it during this process,
Thank
before
you.
the enrollment and transfer cycle.
So we can see
But it
that
was
simulation.
saying we're going to reserve slots for native language speakers, and we're going to work to increase it. So this year was the first year we did the 15% set aside in those two programs, and we'll look to increase it some amount that makes sense in the context that we're looking at.
Do you know if you got the 15%? Did you have? Did they fill?
Yes.
Did you go? Yes, they did. Okay.
Good.
Greg?
So this is not so much a question as a comment that I just want to be sure that as we look at these, that we're aware of the impact that's going to happen on buildings my understanding is, right, is that as we modeled this, some schools will be overcrowded, some schools will be undercrowded. Some of those shift, some of those are in the same situation. So I just wonder if, as we make this, we could also be looking ahead to make sure that we can be ahead of that. And then I just, this isn't clarifying either, and it's not a discussion, but I do want to just express appreciation for the effort to allow special ed students to stay in their school or the community, knowing that they probably already had to leave their community to get the services they deserve.
Dr. Buell?
Let me help some confusion here, and I'm not putting value on these things, I'm just not sure I'm understanding it. On the proposal overview, focus option, alternative program review, 5, 6, and 7, it says initiate focus option review following the educational options policy. Expand second recommendation to include access and MLC. Identify successful programs for potential replication. Now, my understanding of the SACIT, and maybe you can correct me, the SACIT idea is to get kids into their neighborhood schools.
Correct.
And theoretically, and I have a speech on that, so let me give it tonight. But something that doesn't get them and keep them in their neighborhood schools is to create options to draw them out of their neighborhood schools, which is identify successful programs for potential replication. So I'm not sure how this is all fitting together in terms of, okay, are we going to create, I mean, every focus option that I've talked to seems to be pretty successful. Do we have any that don't have waiting lists? They all have waiting lists? Do you know that? Does somebody know that? Does all our focus options?
She's saying yes.
Judy? Yeah, they all have waiting lists. How big, say, is a waiting list at a place like Da Vinci or at
Judy, do you want to come back up to the table?
Yeah, and I'm going to just ask the chair to pay attention to where we're in clarifying questions and where we're in, yeah, but
This is
yes.
clarifying.
Okay.
This is very clarifying.
That's what I'm looking for.
But I think we're not,
Well, just because I'm asking a question that's clarifying, it gets ruled as kind of not being clarifying?
Then just
I
check it.
didn't rule
Yeah,
anything
good. Well, I'm
right
talking
now,
about,
Director
I
Buell.
don't
Would you
think-
just go ahead and ask your
Yeah,
question?
okay, well, then there's an answer. I'm clarifying this.
What's your
Okay.
question?
Do we have waiting lists?
Da Vinci and Odyssey.
Director Buell, I did not bring that data with me. I could get it very quickly.
Give me
I
a
can certainly
ballpark
email it
maybe.
for you. I can tell you that Da Vinci routinely receives approximately 400 applicants for, well, no, wait, I do have it.
Should be on our
Of course I
chart.
have it.
Yeah,
You all
I
have it
missed
in
it.
these large sheets.
Good, I missed it.
Gives you a sense of the total number of applicants for each of the schools. And like Da Vinci routinely receives about 300 more applicants than Space. Creative Science, approximately 100 more applicants, so 3 times the number of applicants than Space. They don't all get put on the wait list. Odyssey, about twice as many applicants as Space. Winter Haven, 3 to 4 times as many applicants as Space.
3 to 4 times at Winter Haven?
Yes, sir.
clarify what we're not.
So that's an example of demand for focus option schools.
So if we identified successful programs for potential replication, everything that we have would be potentially replicable, and we would then build another, 9 focus option schools?
Well,
That's what it
that
says
is-
here.
Just
That's what it
a
says here.
second. This is really kind of going beyond
This is,
Director Buell.
this
Let's
is,
try and just keep it into questions, and if you have something
It
that
is a
staff,
que- that was a question.
staff can bring back to you, the answer to the question, or it's more for for them to understand where you're going to need more information in the future as we go forward with this, not to answer specific questions about the different parts of the policy.
So I'm not supposed to ask a clarifying question about this? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it depends
saying
on-
that-
no,
That's the thing.
there's-
We certainly don't want a public clarifying question. We want to do it in secret or something. Send me an email.
No, we're trying
Let
to get
everybody
enough-
out here send me an email and I'll send you the answer. Same with the television audience. How about if I ask the clarifying question and if they don't have an answer, now they could send me an email with the answer, and that's fine. I can accept that.
Well, that's just fine,
But
except
what
that
about if they have an
the answer to the question just asked was in the packet that you have in front of you. Director Atkins?
So I just wanted, so what we would be looking at is initiate focus option review following the education options policy,
Correct.
period.
Correct.
That's all. So what the outcome of that might be, those bullets underneath that, that it's going to also include access and MLC in that, potentially identifying, but there's no decision that we're making around that specific action steps, what the results or outcomes or next steps would be as a result of that focus option review. That would be to come. So all I'm saying is for us to expand that whole discussion right now, that's not what
We
we're...
don't have the information in
We
front
don't
of
have the
us.
information, we're not at that stage. What we would be authorizing the superintendent to do is initiate the focus option review following the educational options policy.
Correct.
That's
And,
my
and so to see, in partial answer to your question, that looking at programs to potentially replicate, it doesn't mean we're going to replicate all of them, but like we may end up coming through a review, considering we're looking both at where are we citing our current programs, and we're looking at that in balancing the system, so looking at strong neighborhood programs and whatever element of choice we believe we can sustain in our system, but that's being responsive to what families are looking for. That's what this conversation would be. And we've had numbers of our focus options where we've had desire for replication and we haven't had the means to do it. And it's just surfacing that will be part of the conversation in this process, but clearly dynamic in terms of whether we think it's the right thing to do at a given moment or not.
So it's kind of clarifying what it says here.
Yeah, exactly. But it's one of the things that will surface through this process. Yes, that's clarifying what you said there, yes.
So basically,
Okay.
basically what you're saying is that we're not necessarily going to do any potential replication. We have no ideas. Have we thought around that?
But we'll
A
consider it.
clarification of your thought?
We'll consider it as part of this process. So as we're reviewing, part of what the review calls for is looking at what was the mission intended with a given focus option? Are we meeting the mission? What's the success of it? Is it cited appropriately? Do we have too many clustered in one part of the city that are drawing away from their neighborhoods? Might we relocate one someplace else? I mean, so those are the kinds of questions that get asked. So it's really saying we will embark on a methodical review and where of the focus options and the role they play in the system and whether they're meeting the mission they were intended to serve and how successful they're being. So.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, so I appreciate you clarifying that.
And where we would locate this is in our system planning and performance department, so that's where we'll add staff capacity to do this. And we would start this year so that we have the information from it for informing next year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just had two questions. One was, just following up on what Director Regan was talking about, I'm interested in what the criteria for the petitions will be. And so I don't want that tonight. I just want it clarified what it's going to be, because I couldn't vote on this without having that kind of information. And then the other thing that I had a question about would be there's some language in here about outreach to historically underserved communities. And I don't see, so a clarifying question for me would be, are we adding more money to the budget to have someone do that kind of work? And what kind of outreach are we going to do other than just with our communities of color and the groups that we have traditionally done this with in the past and not received the kind of applicants that we want? So what are we going to do different this time than we have done in the past? So those are the only two things I needed clarified. Director Regan?
So I want to open up the conversation just a tiny bit for two issues that I've, for 10 or 12 years, had concerns about in terms of enrollment and transfer, because if we're going through this process, we might as well do it already. So one I've brought up before has to do with heritage students. So students who are adopted from Romania, Russia, China, and whether or not we could figure out any wording to give parents of those students the opportunity for them to get into a program that will allow them to learn their native language or learn more about their culture. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if there's a way that we could still look at that, but I would appreciate some thought around it. Mm-hmm. And then the second one is, and I left my packet at home, so I don't have exactly where it is. We have a statement in our current enrollment transfer policy that says that when you make a change to a focus school, that is a change for the full year. And when you transfer into a focus program. I have always felt very strongly that no matter what, your neighborhood school you should be allowed to be in your neighborhood school. And so if a student transfers into a focus school and realizes it's not a good fit for whatever reason and wants to go back, we basically, I think, oftentimes don't allow that to happen for a full year, and I think it can cause some huge stress on the child and on the family. So I'd like us to think about that and whether or not there's a way for us to adjust. And I understand that you're looking at the stability of the focus school, you're looking at the stability of the neighborhood school and enrollments and the rest. But it strikes me, maybe if this is all moved to a petition process, it won't, maybe that they could petition for a change mid-year. But I think forcing a child or a family to be in a school where they're completely miserable, when another child could move into that exact same neighborhood from out of state and get into that school the next day, there just is something wrong with that. So my sense is the neighborhood school should always be your backup, at least. So anyway, I would love for us to just look at that real quick. And then I also just had a real quick question in terms of the proposal overview on moving the free and reduced and Head Start in front of the sibling preference. In general, it sounds like that will work out fine, and I believe over time it will be completely fine, especially as we get more historically underserved and high poverty kids into these buildings. I mean, the siblings will be those same. What I am really just concerned about is just this first couple of years, if we have some outlier schools with more siblings than, and whether we will have any exceptions just to get through the first couple of years until we're at that place. So again, as I look at this, I'm comfortable with it, other than maybe the first couple of years where we could have a couple of outliers. And if we could make, either in our resolution or somewhere, just think that through. So.
Okay. Could I do a follow-up clarifying on
Clarifying.
that? So I think, so along those lines, I mean, just looking at, my understanding of the impact would be that it would really reduce, what it would do is would give the new preference for free and reduced lunch, and it would maintain the sibling. But the green bar, in other words, all others, that there would be a reduction in those slots.
Right.
So what I'm wondering though is, if, to your point, I guess the clarifying question is, if there were for some reason some huge increase in one or the other of the new preferences, my assumption would be that there would just be fewer slots available for other folks, and that would adjust. But I think just to make sure we're clear on that would be helpful.
Look at the one with the multiple bars is actually your.
And again, what you presented makes it appear that the sibling
Right.
preference will be
I know what you're
fine.
saying.
All I'm saying is in those first couple of years until we have the balanced enrollment, we may have some outliers. And
But
I just
I'm
wanna,
putting it as a question here to
Why don't
go
we just,
further.
why don't we just leave it as that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great, okay? Everybody can look at the stuff in their packet. Yep.
I do have a couple questions.
Okay. Dr. Fuller?
So I looked at the language, the red line, real quickly, and I thought I saw, and maybe you can clarify this, that there is now a preference for non-resident. Did I read that wrong?
Non-resident.
Where are you seeing that in the?
In the policy red line?
Yeah, and I don't have it with me, and I thought I saw it. I just wanted to make double check.
So current policy includes non-resident students. They're the last in line below all resident students in all categories. Your future policy, if approved, won't apply to non-resident students at all because it's out of compliance with new state laws.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
under Roman numeral 4, this policy does not apply to, and it's been added, non-resident students.
Okay, I was just confused by that, so thank you. And then the other clarifying question I have is, you did these scenarios and are telling us it's not going to affect siblings, and in terms of co-enrolling with their families. If that's the case, why are we changing it?
Because, okay, so let me take you
Yeah.
back to your graph here, if I can figure out where the graph is. And this is why we're making the distinction between the, using the free and reduced lunch as the thing that we prioritize, and not using the geographic balancer. So the geographic balancer didn't appear to end up diversifying who has access to the program. The free and reduced lunch one did. And what you're looking at here in the pairs, Tom, is the blue bar, right? Here and here. Here's what this would have been Buckman with the students who are actually approved, right here, bar number 1. Bar number 2 with 14% that end up being free and reduced lunch qualifying students, correct? Just switching, like putting that preference in front of sibling preference, you increased the number of students who were qualifying for free and reduced lunch up to 33%. So it reduced the green bar of everybody else.
And the first
But-
bar is what?
So this is current approvals right here, actuals.
Which has no free and reduced.
No, it's just who was actually in, which had 14% free and reduced lunch,
Right, and there's no
41%
other preferences.
and 41% co-enrolled siblings,
Yeah.
okay? If you apply the proposed model, you end up with 33% who qualified for free and reduced lunch, but you still end up with 40% co-enrolled siblings. You end up with a smaller number of everybody else who got in, okay? So we're actually increasing the number of students who qualified for free and reduced lunch. But what this is doing is it's applying, if we had the current rules in place with the current group of kids who applied, this is what the impact would have been. So we're just using exactly the pool who applied and applying 2 different sets of rules, what actually happened this year and what would have happened if we applied the new rules to that same group of kids.
So
And it increased.
Could we have run a scenario, or did you, maybe you did, where we keep sibling preference as the preference, we add the free and reduced, and what would that look like?
If you kept sibling first and free and reduced second. Yep, Judy, come on up.
It would look the same.
I think so.
Not one.
Thank you. I'm wearing my Fitbit and I'm getting lots of steps for this. Thank you. There are 4 additional students who are siblings who would have been approved during the
9 years.
Yeah.
9 years worth.
So you did
over
run
the
that
9
scenario.
years, there are 4 students, and I think the exact number is in the memo.
17, 20.
So there are
It was 4
4
who did not,
siblings
yes.
over the 9 years
9
of
years.
modeling that would not have gotten in this system. So if we put the economic below siblings, 4 more siblings would have gotten it. That's essentially the difference.
And we would have increased the economic by what?
And you would see the same results, only you would see smaller percentages, slightly smaller percentages for Buckman and for creative science. And you would see a slightly higher percentage. I mean, you can see the 2 schools where it was a tiny difference. So for Buckman, they would have 32% low-income students that were approved, as opposed to the 14% who were actually approved. And you would have 41%, so almost half of the school, being allocated towards siblings. So it's a small difference by these, by the models that we ran. Yes.
Director Buell?
And actually, I want to just say something else to Tom, which is that I learned that it is now on the front page. The survey is now on the front page of the website for you. So just.
Well, you were multitasking.
Just saying, I just got
Okay.
that. Just in.
Thank you.
What knocks the
Director
siblings,
Buell?
I'm confused about what knocks the siblings out. Because if you're in the first year here, the Buckman, let's do the Buckman, got 41%. Next year you only have 40%, but why are any of those siblings knocked out if you still have 27% above them? I mean, all the way across this chart, if you just
Yes.
put it,
You're
you
not up to
understand my
45.
Can I
question?
give you an exact example? May I?
Give me whatever you'd like to answer that question. It's just a clarifying
In
question.
the 12-13 school year, I don't know if Buckman, do you have Buckman up here? I know you
Is
have some
Buckman up there?
examples. So we have an example that you can read across. We tried to provide data here so that when you're doing your thinking and deliberating, you can see those results.
Meaning that's Buckman right there?
Yeah, but I was wondering if the chart with the actual numbers.
Yeah, it's up there.
In the 12-13 school year, there were 71 first choice applicants for Buckman, 71.
Okay.
Of those, there were 20 slots to fill. So only 20 out of 71 kids were going to get in Buckman that year.
Okay.
10 of those students qualified as low income. They either qualified for free and reduced meals or Head Start. But there were 13 siblings.
Okay.
So, setting aside 45% of slots for Buckman meant 9 of the low-income students got in. But that only left 11 slots for siblings. And so there were 2 siblings in that year who would not have gotten in, and no other students would have gotten in. When only 20 slots, the 20 slots were allocated, 45% for low income, that filled 9, 11 for siblings because there were 11, and then that left 2 siblings that didn't get in and all of the other applicants that didn't get in.
So this particular chart is people who got in?
This is a summary over time. So for Buckman, it would be 6 years worth of students, everybody K through 5. The bar on the left is what actually happened over 6 years of lotteries. The bar just to the right is what would have happened if the rules that Superintendent Smith is recommending had been in place at
So
the
there's
time.
specific little years when it was totally different than the other years.
Every year, we looked at every actual applicant pool and applied the different rules to see what kind of results we would have achieved.
How many years of Buckman came out that siblings wouldn't have got in?
2 over the 6 years, and it was, so what you see is the total for all 6 years, and it was the equivalent of a 1% difference in all of the siblings that requested Buckman.
Is this chart skewed for the beginning or the end? 'Cause it's got to be skewed one way
No.
or the other.
So again, this
In other
material
words.
and the year by year is in our packet of information
Yeah,
that we
you have a
and-
spreadsheet.
But I'm trying
and
to
the
clarify and
superintendent-
understand this
Well,
material.
This is, right.
So this is these charts are a summary of these spreadsheets that are in your packet. And
All these charts show extra slots available over the 6-year for a percentage of students that are not siblings or not.
over all the years,
So which
correct.
way, so they've got to be skewed one way or the other, probably. Were they skewed the early? I mean, is it the early 6 years ago that skewed us, or is it the last couple of years that skewed these? Because according to these, on the average, those are pretty big percentages at the top.
Could you clarify for me, when you say skewed, you mean availability for the green students? When was there more availability for the green students? Is that, I want to understand your question.
Yes, I guess. I would mean more variability for the green students would be early on as opposed to later.
At Buckman in particular, in prior years, there were more slots, and the applicant pool was about the same, but there were more slots. So the Buckman, you asked about neighborhood schools before. Buckman is a focus options school, but it also has a neighborhood guarantee. And as that neighborhood has grown, access through lottery is actually less than it used to be. So more kids who didn't have preference used to be able to get in. One of the reasons we went back to the actual lotteries
early as opposed to late.
is it allowed us to take a walk down memory lane and see all of those moments of change that happen in schools, the things that you might not be able to predict for in the future, but you can acknowledge happened in the past, like changing the size of the neighborhood.
So really, some of this chart is not very valuable because it's skewed for the early stuff, in Buckman's case, for instance.
Well, I'll leave it up to you to decide the value, but certainly if you would like to see the year by year that goes underneath this total, it's in the data.
So Steve, you
Thank
actually,
you.
and you have a packet, and I'm gonna do this for Richmond, because Richmond, we have large Richmond audience, and you have Richmond for 6 years of program on this chart that's in your packet. And if you went through and you just looked at the siblings for each year, in 2008-9, 26 siblings got in actually, and with the simulation, it would have been 26. 9-10, 40 got in actually, and with the simulation, it would have been 40. 10-11, 39 got in, it would have been 39 with the simulation. 11-12, 50 got in, with the simulation, it would have been 50. So it's the same all the way down. So it's not like skewed one way or the other. It's every year, it's the number of siblings get in. So, I mean, that's.
Buckman was skewed, but are there other ones that would be?
Why don't you get back to us
We'll
on
get
that?
you the charts.
Maybe
We'll
you
get
get
you
back
the,
that.
we'll
Okay,
get you
I
the
have another
spreadsheet.
question.
You got the spreadsheet in your email.
We are now a half an hour past our time that we're supposed to be doing this, so one more question, please, Mr. Buell, Director Buell.
Geez, that's lucky, because I only have one more question.
That's great.
We won't have to fight over that, will we?
Never.
Let's talk about special ed. Now, as I understand this, what it says is that if you are exited from special ed classes, you can then return to your neighborhood school. Is that what this is saying? I'm trying to get the feel for the special ed, because my understanding in the special ed was that we were trying to come up with a system that helped special ed kids across the whole system. For instance, we have the kids who go a couple of years in one school, and then the whole class moves over to Toledo or someplace, and
But there are
back and
many
forth.
things that we're working on with special
Yeah,
ed.
we're working on that. How does this affect?
This specific.
How does this SACIT recommendations and your recommendations, is it helpful at all with that problem? And how?
It's a different thing. So what we're
Okay,
addressing here.
it's not, is it make that problem worse?
No, so what this one is, so it's, what this one is addressing specifically is if a student is not able to attend their neighborhood school because the specific services they need are not available there, so they go to another school to be able to get the specific services they need. When they move out of special education back to general education, right now, they would go back to their neighborhood school. What we're saying is they have the ability to stay in the school they're getting their special education services at and stay there, because that's where they've built community. So we're looking at continuity of service for that student. That's all this is addressing.
And they should be, just to comment on Bobby's comment, is you should be able to go back to neighborhood school.
And-
We're going to neighborhood schools, you should go back anytime you want, but that's my opinion. But what about the other question? Is it neutral on the movement around of special ed classes? Have we looked at that?
That's part of our special education strategic plan. So different topic that you will actually get to, is coming before you. It's a different topic that's not included in this
Did
policy.
we, I guess the question is, did we analyze this,
In
how it
relation to-
affected that? Did we analyze this plan, how it affects
Yes.
special ed classroom movement?
We are, so there's a separate conversation about how we're looking at continuity for special ed kids
Okay.
in general, and trying to keep services within clusters and reduce, keep continuity of service for special education
But
students.
the answer sounds like, no, we didn't really analyze this specific plan for that. We're going to look at that
You're
down the
gonna
line
hear about
someplace.
this,
Okay.
you're gonna hear from special ed about
Director
their
Atkins.
service model.
Just
Yes.
really quickly, my recollection from the SACIT conversations around this was that our current policy does not reflect the reality, because it says that every student, I'm not quoting exactly.
Yes,
So
correct.
we need to reflect that it's not every student is able necessarily to attend their neighborhood school, because special education students are sometimes assigned. So that was one piece. And then the other piece was, this recommendation specifically was to address the issue of providing that opportunity for special education students to be able to have that continuity. But it's just one piece. That's all that they were focusing on in this recommendation.
Thank you, answers my question.
Thank you, everybody. And a reminder to everybody here in the audience and those watching us on TV that you can find the schedule for our town halls and hearings and public comment and the survey and everything on our website. So be sure and look at those. Next, we'll do a Multnomah County Service District Annual Accountability Report. I'd like to welcome the MESD and ask them to the speakers table, present the report. We already have them in our packet, so that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
Chair Knowles, members of the board, Superintendent Smith, and your student representative. I appreciate you taking the time to hear us tonight and to discuss our accountability report for the 2013-14 school year. Last year, when we did this, we brought to you a little bit different accountability report. We had this on our website, and we provided videos of some of your students talking about the programs that they're in. So this year, we kind of did a little bit of both things together. So what you see before you is the PDF format of the accountability report. If you go on our MESD website to look at this, you can also look at it there in kind of a live function. We have what's called a flip book, and this is in the format of a flip book. So if you go online, you can pretty much go through and flip the pages just like you would do a normal book. And also embedded in that is 4 videos. One I think that you saw last year, but the other ones are also different programs and new things. So within this content, we can pretty much put anything we want into this flip book opportunity for people to look to see what's going on at the ESD. So this is our first attempt to get the PDF of this into the flip book and make sure that everybody has access to that. We'll turn it into the state as a flip book, and it'll be on the transparency site as the flip book. And so lots of different things will be coming through this type of a process. So at first, I guess, like to just do an overview of the table of contents there with what is in the report, and you can see all the different opportunities of information that are there. Plus, in the B section, there are reports for every school district that we serve. The next piece is the message from me, and I really focus this time again on looking at efficient services, looking at effective kinds of services for kids, and making sure that we're doing really efficiency in costing out our programs, and making sure again that we're doing things that our school districts are asking us to do, not necessarily what we like to do. That's kind of different. We'd like to do some things, but we're here to serve you first. So, yeah. And then the next section that are pages I think it's A7, or actually A2 through A9, are the summary of the individual services that we have within the local service plan that you all get to read every year and approve the services that are in there that we offer. And some of those things you purchase, some of them you don't purchase, but again, that's a district choice of what goes on. So that is the massive book that we put together. This is a shorter rendition of the different kinds of services that are there, so it's kind of pretty much an overview of those kinds of things. The next piece is the financial overview that is there, that follows on page A10. And this is pretty much more specifically revenue sources that we have for the ESD. So in 13-14, we had $57,424,161 that came into the ESD from those different revenue sources. And if you look at the expenditures there, our expenditures were $59,191,501, and you'll see a difference of a couple of $1 million there. That's because we're getting late money in from DHS. We have a contract with them to provide different sorts of services to them, and so they're a little late in trying to figure out all of those billings and stuff that came in. So we're still recouping money from them. The second, next page of that is a profile of the component school districts, and so you'll see each one of the school districts, a map of the whole county, where your districts are at, and then the different numbers of schools that are in each district and the enrollment. So you can see there are 107,693 kids within all the school districts last year, and I would probably venture to guess that this year it's probably called N climbing. It seems like we're getting a lot of kids in, not only to our ISD, but it seems like the districts are continuing to get more kids in at this point of the year too, which is a little bit late, but they're still coming in and moving in from out of state. I get a number of calls from people that are coming in and wanting to know which district should be the best, and I just tell them all of our districts are the best, so any place they land, they're gonna get good service from everybody. On page 812 are the schools and sites that we have. We had a couple of changes this year. Our Pathway School that was out in Gresham that serves our most cognitively delayed and kids with extreme behavior disorders. We moved to what we have now identified as Wheatley School in the Park Rose School District, and that is one of their old elementary buildings that are there. So actually for these students, it is actually the first time that they have ever been in a real school building, that they have an opportunity to walk the halls like a normal student and, you know, go to different classroom kinds of structures. And so we're sort of changing the model that we have for those students, hopefully getting them, again, more acclimated to what a school is, what a school looks like, how you appropriately act in the schools and in the halls and things like that. The other three that are there, Ocean Dunes High School, Three Lakes High School, and Yamhill County Juvenile Detention are all contract programs that we have from the state that we've expanded past Multnomah County to be able to provide the juvenile justice programs to kids in other counties. And so we have people that are housed in those areas, work in those counties, and live there, and actually will do that work for us. So that has been really nice to be able to afford the same kinds of opportunities for those students. 813 has our governance, and of course, here's Kevin Spellman. I know that you know him well, one of our outstanding board members, and I'm still so glad that he has hung with us for a long time to be on our board. I really appreciate him a lot. So, staff profile is on A14, and I think most importantly on this page at the bottom, you can see that 74% of our staff that we have do direct service to kids. We have 18% of school staff that offer support kinds of things, our secretaries, office assistants, and things like that. And 8% of the people that we have working at the ESD are our administrators. We have now 33 administrators. We have gone from 45 down to 33, and so we're continuing again to move out of the supervision kinds of things and try to move more money down to services for students, because I feel like that's a really important thing to do, and we're hanging in there being able to do that. The next page, A15, is the advisory committees, and as you can see under your Portland, you've got several people that are working for us in curriculum, and also in outdoor school, as well as school health and special education services. And I really appreciate that they're able to come to our meetings, advise us on the different programs that we have, really give us some good feedback and expand opportunities for students, and look very specifically at the kinds of things that we're providing to kids and what we can do better. So I really want to thank them for that. That next page there is where it says component district data. This is actually where the videos, you can see the videos in there if you go online. And then B1 starts actual financial summary kinds of things, and I'm going to let Kevin talk about that.
Co-Chair Knowles, board members, Superintendent Smith. Not sure why I always get the money part of these things, but
as he's good at it.
As you can see from this financial summary, there, Portland Public Schools has about 40% of the budget, or our budget, that serves the 8 districts. And so this is an accountability report, but I think you can sense that maybe we feel a little more accountable to you than perhaps some others. If you go to page B23, it really gets to the services we provide for PPS, and I'm going to focus just on three parts. We have a lot of your students at Helensview High School, and I think last year when we showed the video that was focused on Helensview. At our board meeting last week, these are kids who have frankly failed in the regular school system. Some of them are were totally disengaged from the school district, from the school system, and have been re-engaged. At our board meeting last week, the Helensview Leadership Council came to visit. So this was about 10 of those students who spoke to our board, and you would not recognize these kids as being disengaged from the educational system. They're all on track to graduate. The always favorite program, Outdoor School, is listed here. Two things to say about Outdoor School. We would really like to get back to a full week of Outdoor School. We know the reasons why that hasn't happened, but that certainly remains our goal. And we're engaged with some other partners to go to Salem and try to get at least some of this funding out of the state school fund, so it's not competing with everything else that we're trying to do. We were there last session, and we'll be back again this session, and so we certainly appreciate your support in that regard. By far the biggest dollars that are here relate to nursing. And we've got school nursing at nearly $3 million, special needs nursing $193,000, and one-on-one nursing at over $500,000. And there's really the same message here. We don't understand why those services have to compete with classroom services, but that's the way it is right now. So we've been engaged again with others, including some legislators, to try to access, at least partially, healthcare dollars from the state to get them out of the state school fund, so we're not trying to have to decide if we can hire a teacher versus a nurse. It makes no sense to us.
Yeah, that's great.
I think with that, this is an accountability report, so we're certainly open for questions.
Questions? Yeah. The rest of the report really has a lot of information for the other school districts. So, yes.
Thank you. Director Buell?
Two questions, one on the nursing, one on something else. How many nurses do we have in Portland? School nurses in Portland?
So we have a total of 35 FTE. Not all of.
If you're going to speak, you have to come down to the table and state your name for the record, spell your last name, and then.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
Margot Lawledge. I'm Director of School Health Services for MESD. So
Thank you.
we have right now 35 FTE for Portland Public Schools. We have 7 currently vacant. Oh, thank you very much. Vacant positions. We've had a little bit of staffing challenges this year just because the overall nursing workforce is changing and natural attrition due to retirement. So we're working with Maxim, which is a staffing agency that is both supporting what we call the population-based services, which are the traditional school nurses that may have 2 to 3, 4 schools, and then also helping to support the one-to-one nurses in some of the cohort classrooms as well.
The one-on-one individual students, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
The ones that are in our school, how many are school health nurses do we have, and what does that run about? I mean, how do we staff that? And then the second follow-up question, which isn't my second question, just a follow-up one. I want to ask about the staffing if we're helping you. So how many, about what would run if one nurse per how many kids, or one nurse per how many schools? I mean, how does that work out, and is it in the grade school? How does
So
that
that's
come
a
out?
really great question. And it's some of the work that we're doing on the with the legislature. The national recommendation ratio is 1 nurse to 750 students. Most states east of the Mississippi actually are close, if not already meeting that ratio. In Oregon, the current ratio, if you take out the one-to-one nurses, is 1 to 4,000 students. So it's a huge responsibility. And so our primary focus is on, and our priorities are students with the most complex health needs, or students who have health issues like asthma, diabetes, seizure disorders, who are not the most complex students who require the one-to-one or cohort classrooms, but do require some type of a health management plan.
So if Oregon is 1 to 4,000, Portland is?
Actually, Portland Public Schools is about 1 to 2,200. So
thank you.
you're doing better than the rest of the state, we'll put it that way.
Thank you for sharing that
welcome.
with me. And I have a question for Superintendent.
What was your follow-up?
That was the follow-up.
That was the
I have the second question. And I'm concerned about, you've got the most sensitive student data around.
Yes, we do.
I mean, probably,
Yes, we do.
maybe the juvenile justice is more sensitive, but basically, you've got big-time sensitive data. I've been very concerned about the breaching of the longitudinal database in Oregon. We just had the employment division data, 650,000 persons' data lost. So what are you doing? Are you going to go down and lobby? I know Lou Frederick has some bill coming out, which is to help that. Are you going to be there lobbying for that? Do you send your data into the longitudinal database? What do you see as your responsibilities?
Yes, we do send data in. We are pretty much have a lot of firewalls that are within our technology department. So breaching and getting into any student data with us, you'd have to be pretty darn good to be able to do that.
But if you say you do send it into the state.
Yes, we
It's going
send
to
it.
get breached at the state. It's not going to get breached for you guys anyhow.
We
likely.
send it in through a secured system to be able to do that, and basically what we send is to a data warehouse where it is all stored down at the state, and they also have firewalls for all of that. So
But they're going to get breached.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of time, and
it's
it's
just
going to
probably
be
a
your
matter of time.
data is the most sensitive down there. I'm just wondering if you want to keep sending it down there. I don't want to keep sending the Portland data down to the state to have it breached down there. Because the criminals were going to go for the largest and easiest.
Right.
It's easier to get all at once instead of going to Portland Public Schools, Reynolds, instead of going to the ESD. So I'm really concerned about that, and I would hope that your board would be very concerned about that, and we'd be down there lobbying to maybe not even do a longitudinal database that includes
Yeah,
your data.
and I just actually got that invitation today from Lou Frederick's
Oh, good.
committee
Wonderful.
To be a part of that. So
Good.
I'm definitely going to be listening to that and see what they have to say about the changes that they're going to do with making sure that there aren't breaches of information.
Yeah, they're not gonna be able to do that, but they might be able to put in rules that when it does get breached, all your kids' data won't be breached.
Right.
So that's a possibility.
And I think the other thing too is you all, each individual school district owns your data, so we can't send it any place unless you're telling us to do that. And so that's one of the major
Portland
rules
tells
that we
you to
live
send it
by.
in?
Yes.
But the state tells you to send it in. What's the difference between
Well,
Portland sending in and the state telling
tells
you?
us to send it in, but until we get permission to be able to do that from each school district, we have to hold that data, and we work together with your folks that work in technology here versus our folks. So they're always working together on those things.
So would we in Portland Public Schools be allowed to withhold our data and tell you, no, you're not sending our data up, and we wouldn't get in trouble, or is that just some sort of fuzzy thing out in the...
It's a fuzzy thing out there.
That's what I
You would
thought.
probably have to send it in anyway.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Belisle?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is we'd get in trouble and they'd be fine. I just had a question, Mr. Spellman. I think that I either heard something wrong or I think that it was mischaracterized. I thought I heard you say that there's advocacy at the state level to have outdoor school funding come from the state school fund.
No,
Thank
quite
you.
the opposite.
That's,
Quite the opposite.
I just wanted to double check. I thought I heard that because I would not be in support of that.
No.
I do think that as a state, it's an important thing for us to step up and fund.
Right.
but not at the expense of continuing to undercut our regular state school fund.
Agreed.
We know that there are a lot of other partners, and soil and conservation is one of them that we've been working really hard with. Metro is putting in a lot of money to outdoor school. We're seeking more partners, but for us, it's our belief really with the outdoor school is it's not just kids in the Portland area that should be getting that. It's every single child in the state that should be allowed access to outdoor school, and that's not happening all over the state. So some way we're trying to figure out advocacy with other kinds of partners in environmental education to be able to help with that.
Other questions or comments?
Just really,
Director Atkins?
just really quickly, thank you so much for your entire report, but particularly hearing the piece about the healthcare and the nurses. In my day job around housing, that's some of the same conversations we're having around supportive housing and health navigators connected with housing. So very similar piece where if you're able to reduce costs and improve outcomes, then that's directly related to the healthcare transformation. So really excited that you're doing that advocacy and love to be a part of that.
Good.
And Marco, I think, has been one of the driving forces to meet with legislators and a multitude of people to, try to say, this is education dollars, it should go to classrooms. How else can we pay for these kinds of services?
Sure.
So I'm really applauding her efforts on that.
Great, thank you so much.
Director Regan?
So, thank you for being here. And you have a great board right now. It's really
Yes, we
fun
do.
to work with. Several of them are involved with the Oregon School Boards Association also, which is great. So when I look at the services you provide in terms of instructional services, health services, special ed, technology and administrative support services, the question I was going to ask you is where are the synergies where we can be lobbying together in Salem? We're going to be approving our legislative policies and priorities tonight, and OSBA's legislative policies and priorities tonight. So it sounds like in terms of the nurses, that's one area. In terms of outdoor school, are there any other obvious areas where we should be looking to maybe lobby together?
I think the funding for high-cost kids with disabilities is really an area still that the state needs to reconsider. There's just, to me, a minute amount of money that gets dispersed back to the districts on that, and it's just not enough for the kinds of kids that are being served across the state nowadays, and that population is continuing to grow every year. It's not getting better, and the kinds of kids that are coming into us have so many different kinds of disabilities now that are one on top of the other, especially kids now that have really different kinds of disabilities and mental health needs on top of that. And it's hard to figure out how to serve those kids appropriately without having, a number of people working to try to figure out what is the best kind of service for them. So any sort of help that they could give there is something I think they need to continue to do. I think the other piece is looking at, the numbers of initiatives that the governor has out and how we're going to be funding those in the future. And I know we've talked in the superintendent meetings about no carve-outs with what's coming to us. Rather than carve-outs, put other new money into that. And I think the only way some of these things are going to get settled is if they find new money to be able to do this. And that's up to the legislature to, to make sure that that's happening. So any assistance there would be helpful.
Good, thank you. Really helpful.
Other comments? Oh, thank you very much for, did you have something else?
Yeah, I
Dr.
was just
Buell?
I was commenting, 870 million, we talked about it last week, being carved out for the governor's programs.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the report, and thank you for all the work that you do for our district.
You're welcome. Thank you. If you have any other questions or anything, feel free to give me a call and look at our videos.
Thank you. Looking forward to the videos.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is the master planning for the three high schools. The board received a presentation on this topic at our last meeting and will now consider Resolution 4990, authorizing the superintendent to proceed with master planning of the three high schools. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Director Regan moves and Director Atkins seconds the motion to adopt Resolution 4990. Ms. Houston, do we have citizen comment?
We do. We have two. Eleni Kehajeres and Richard Spees.
Welcome. You were both here when I read the instructions for public comment? Great, thank you.
Been
Thank you
here
for
the
being
whole
here.
time.
Huh?
I've been here the whole time.
I know,
waiting
I
patiently.
know I
Thank
saw
you.
them there, but I just wanted to be sure.
I know.
Go ahead, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Eleni Kehagiaras, Kehagiaras, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak in response to the bond nomination. And so thank you, board. I want to say that as the long-term development committee chair and also a Lincoln parent of a freshman and a sophomore, I'm here on behalf of the LTDC and Lincoln High School to say that we are very excited and enthusiastic about the 2016 bond nomination, and congratulations to our fellow nominees, Benson and Madison. Tonight, I'd like to share 3 things with you just to give you some information on us, who we are, what we've done, and where we are prepared to go. We are the oldest high school in Portland. We are a 145-year legacy. We're an urban school with a large geographic area, bringing a lot of diversity to our demographic. We are homeless, we are privileged, we are speakers of many languages. We are creative, we are dedicated, we are Portland. We're outdated, yet we're innovative. We're falling apart, yet we're strong. We are overcrowded, but we are friendly. And when we see a problem, we yearn to fix it. So Lincoln High School and the LTDC believes that we can do better, we will do better, better for our kids, better for our community, and better for Oregon. We are a community that strives for excellence. To us, this opportunity is more than just a rebuild. It is more than just a chance to provide a newer, greener, or safer facility. We see this bond as an opportunity to do what needs to be done for our future, to open the box, shift the curriculum, create partnerships, achieve state goals, learn more, learn better, graduate more, leave no one behind, break down the walls, build a stronger city, be leaders in education, and not just for us, not just for Lincoln, Benson, and Madison, but for all of PPS and beyond. For every student in our city and in our state, for everyone who will come next, because to us, it is all about the kids and about our future. Our current efforts have been geared toward building alliances and partnerships within our community with higher education and industry. We've engaged our cluster. We know who the parent leaders coming up the pipeline from our feeder schools are, and we know that they share our vision and care about the future as much as we do. Our community is engaged, passionate, and present. We've held talks with our neighbor, PSU, about programmatic partnerships that would involve all of the PPS high schools so that all of our students would have access to a clear path to college, to dual credit, or maybe even to a model like Fabian and Concordia, the true wave of the future. Last night, we held what we hope to be the first of many community forums to engage and empower our community with a tremendous turnout, and we were able to share and discuss our immediate needs, our future vision, and the beginning of an action plan, a plan that will improve education and that will allow us to pioneer some new models and link up with communities all around Oregon. I hope that when you take the time to vote, you are in agreement with this nomination before you, and that together we can take our kids, our future talent pool, the next generation of our city to the next level, and that we can do that with facilities that facilitate learning, accommodate everyone and their needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairperson Knowles, Superintendent Smith, members of the board. My name is Richard Spies, that's S-P-I-E-S, and as a member of the bond committee, I want to underscore our recommendation to place Lincoln, Benson, and Madison on the 2016 bond and focus planning dollars on those 3 schools. By working with long-term development committees with both Lincoln and Benson, I can see the potential to form creative solutions that not only inspire students, but energize their respective neighborhoods. Having been born and raised in the Madison neighborhood, I also believe that the ongoing potential of Northeast Portland, I can see the value of a 21st century community-oriented school would create real energy in that neighborhood. In all 3 of these schools, it will be crucial to gain community support. We all are ready to reach out at Lincoln and Benson, and the Lincoln Forum last night was a great testimony to the leadership that exists there, and that many more of these events will take place to create a community-based solution. At Benson, we've been working to form advisory committees with a neighborhood that consists of leaders from business, industry, and higher education. As an architect and Benton grad, I have been leading a diverse group that has been dreaming of a comprehensive, multifaceted design center featuring architecture, urban design, engineering, sustainability, interiors, even product design, and fashion. We are drawing inspiration from other projects across the country, such as the Baltimore Design Center. This is a public design school that also includes 6 through 12 students. Actually, I believe the idea of integrating middle schoolers into an inspirational project-based learning environment has real merit and is worth evaluating as we move forward. Benton, more than any school in the city, has an opportunity through advanced CTE programs to serve as an economic engine for the entire region. It can do this by providing a motivated and highly skilled workforce for tomorrow's industry and businesses. The upcoming visionary process for these 3 schools is a unique chance to dream big. Hopefully the brightest and best ideas will help shape truly unique and powerful solutions in each one of these schools. We sincerely hope you vote to move ahead with the committee's recommendation, and we pledge our support in helping it happen. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, is there any board discussion on the resolution?
I just wanted to say one thing.
Director Regan?
I was at the meeting at Lincoln last night, and it really was totally exciting to be hearing about the possibilities, and I love the fact that Benson and Madison were included in the conversations the whole time. It was really exciting. The one question that came up after the meeting, several people asked me about, that I just wanted to share with you, is a question about whether or not Portland Public Schools could think about putting out a request for proposals, just an open request for proposals around these 3 high schools and the current 3 that are being designed in terms of partnership potential, whether that would be, civic partnerships or arts, STEM, career technical education, business pathways, that sort of thing. But I loved the idea, and I just wanted to kind of put it out there. I don't know how exactly it would look, but I think there's a whole lot of people in the community who are paying attention and wanting to support us and wanting to partner with us. So anyway, I just wanted to share that one. So anyway, yes, this is great.
Director Atkins?
Just really quickly, I just wanted to flag, I'm super excited to support this, but just as we move forward, given that the Lincoln and Benson communities have been hard at work on this for a number of years, and the Madison community hasn't yet had that opportunity to do that depth of exploration and thinking and visioning and dreaming. So I just really wanted to flag, I know that we're moving forward, but special attention and early and often to that community to help them participate at that same level is super exciting.
Yep. Okay. Director Buell?
I hope that this time around we do a little better job of including teachers and other community members up front in the design process. We ended up with a design that we're still fighting with. We're still fighting about, at least people in the community are still fighting about it at Roosevelt. And when I hear us talk about 21st century design for schools, it's not that I'm putting that down, I think that's the way to go, but I'm not sure that the 21st century design that we're looking at, say for Franklin, is really a 21st century design. It may be a design that somebody has in mind as a 21st century design, but when I sit down and talk to teachers at Franklin, they're saying, no, this design doesn't fit what we're trying to do at Franklin, parts of it. And so I just hope that we'll get teachers involved up front and community members who have some basic background skills in this type of thing involved up front in the design process this time around, much better than we did. I know we had people involved kind of around, we did visioning, did all sorts of stuff, but in the end, it really wasn't very successful.
Director Blisle?
I just wanted to say that I'm excited to support this proposal and just reframe a couple of things. Thank you for your testimony. For a minute there, it sounded a little bit like an Alanis Morissette song. We're broke, but we're creative. But I also want to note a couple of things. One is that we talked about engaging those communities, Benson and Lincoln and Madison, but really this is a city-wide effort. It's a Portland Public Schools. It's about engaging the entire city, and I don't want folks to think that if we get to bond 2, when we get to bond 2, that we're done. That's going to be step 2 of an 8-step process. This is a 32-year bond program to get to all of our schools so that all the students have quality facilities all the way through their K-12 education. So I just want to remind us of that. If somebody isn't on this bond, that doesn't mean they're not on the next bond, or that doesn't mean they don't get it. And I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight that we've taken, sometimes you hear people say, well, the first step is the hardest. Well, the first step is just a up and a down, right? You got to get that second step to show a pattern of actually walking. And then it's really about one revolution. It's about getting through that 1 step, 2 step, back to the another foot to realize that you're actually making progress. So I just want to make sure to keep that momentum going. But I'm very excited, and I want to thank the Bond Development Committee for going through the work, weighing all the options, and I'm trusting that they will help us engage the community as we go forward about why these schools were selected and what the process is, again, for the 32-year bond program.
Okay, we're done? Okay. Also, I'll add my thank you to the Bond Committee as well. And I'm very excited about the second step, and the third, and the fourth. The board will now vote on Resolution 4990. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. All opposed, say no. Are there any abstentions? Nope. Resolution 4990 is approved by a vote of 6-0 with Student Representative Jeswell voting
Yes.
yes.
Yay.
Great, thank you. Yay! Okay, now, the next thing on our agenda is a presentation about our principal support and evaluation. Superintendent Smith, would you like to introduce this item?
I would, and I will introduce Antonio Lopez, who is Assistant Superintendent of Office of School Performance, Sean Murray, our Director of Human Resources, Charlene Williams. Actually, I'm going to let you guys assemble yourselves. Are you okay? And one of our big topics of conversation has been about the importance of school leadership and effectiveness of school leadership in terms of how we're having strong schools. It's a direct connection to how are we ensuring strong neighborhood schools, strong focus option schools. We've got a new evaluation tool, so we're going to walk you through both the tools and the processes we're using right now, both in terms of support of individual school leaders, but also how we're calibrating across our system for strength of the system. So, Antonio,
all right.
Over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Smith. Good evening. My name is Antonio Lopez, LOPZ. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for the Office of School Performance. Co-chairs Knowles and Atkins, directors, student representative, and superintendent. I'm very pleased to come in front of you and be joined by these amazing people. And in terms, we're going to walk you through for what building administration evaluation looks like. And so we're going to start. With Sean, and Sean will talk to you about how the evaluation aligns with ODE, with the state. Then we have Charlene, that she will talk to you about how the senior directors, how they're working with their principals in terms of the monthly check-in. And then lastly, I will talk to you about the principal effectiveness indicators and what it does, and then at the end, then we'll be open for any questions that you might have.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Smith. I'm Sean Murray, Chief Human Resources Officer. Having a little technical difficulty here. Got it. There we go. The Human Resources Department and the Office of School Performance partnered together to develop a performance evaluation tool for our building administrators. Human Resources supported a group of building administrators and a senior director in developing the new evaluation tool. We also provided a draft of the evaluation tool to our union partner, the PAT, to review for input and comments. So last year, 2013-14, we implemented the new building administrator evaluation tool. It was aligned with Senate Bill 290, and if you recall, 290 calls for school districts to adopt state standards for all evaluations for teachers and building administrators. This year, in 2014-15, building administrators will need to align their student growth goals with the superintendent's 3 priorities and the successful school framework. The evaluation tool incorporates Oregon Department of Education Student Learning Growth Goals rubric, as well as ODE's matrix model to determine overall summative evaluation. To perfect our performance evaluation tool, the district is participating in ODE's peer review process with other school districts. This will allow the district to review and comment on other school districts' evaluation tools. At this point, I will turn it over to Senior Director Charlene Williams, who will talk about the Senior Director monthly check-in process.
Good evening, board members, superintendent. I'm Charlene Williams, Senior Director for Roosevelt Cluster and Benson High School. It's been an exciting transition leaving the building and coming to work at a more systemic level with principals around student achievement. And I'm really excited and honored to work with them because they work hard. It's a privilege to work with the principals in the Roosevelt Cluster who are doing amazing work, the principals, the leaders at Benson High School similarly. And we just wanted to share with you a little bit about this monthly check-in process. We actually crafted a document that was run through 3 major areas of the organization. It started in the Office of School Performance with the senior directors, asking ourselves the question of how are we going to align the school district's work around the 3 priorities, the Successful Schools Framework, and help that land successfully at the school level. How do we keep our eye on the prize on a monthly basis with all of the competing factors that administrators face on a regular basis? How can we, as a system, align our conversation, align our work, align our supports to do so? With that, the Assistant Superintendent, Antonio Lopez, took our document through pretty much every facet of the organization and vetted it and asked tough questions. Are we asking the right questions? Do we have proper information to support principals as they're doing their work on a monthly basis? So after several rounds and iterations, we've landed, and we know that it's still a living document with the tool that's in your board packet this evening. A couple key points: it does align with the Successful Schools Framework, our 3 priorities. We incorporate long-term data as well as immediate data when we're talking to principals about their performance, their school performance. It provides us with formal and consistent check-in with principals, and it allows us as senior directors to calibrate our work so that the principal in other clusters are experiencing the same level of conversation and support from their senior director. It serves as a place where we can collect a battery of artifacts, of evidence, of tools that really explain the actual work that's happening on the ground at the school level. We have also initiated this month proactive conversations with our PAT UNISERV reps, and we are really looking to really collaborate as we try to problem solve the challenges of educating our youth with the challenges that we face as a system. So I want you to look at the document that we use. This is just one of the forms. And we have a form for the literacy goal that we have as a district. We have a form for the reducing disproportionate discipline practices. And we also have a high school graduation form. So on each of these forms, you'll see the same set of questions aligned around that particular goal. So in the upper left corner, you see that this particular document is the literacy monthly check-in. And here is where we look at various pieces of assessment data. We look at instructional practices. We look at strategies. Building leaders are really fighting for time to get into classrooms to offer regular feedback to teachers and support that shows up at that level, what their progress monitoring plan is, et cetera. And you'll see at the bottom of the document, we have the Successful Schools Framework follow-up questions, where we really dig a little deeper in our framework. Let's walk literacy through quality instruction, quality assessment, school and family partnerships, PLCs, the school culture. How do all of these pieces align to support this vision of every child reading at grade level by the end of third grade? And for that matter, by the end of every grade. So we're really excited about this conversation. So to add some story and context, I've asked the principal of Sitten to join us, Principal Dana Narenberg. I want her to tell you a little bit about herself, where she comes from, and then how our conversations happen. So, Dana?
Thanks. Good evening. I'm Dana Narenberg. I'm the principal at Sitten. Is this loud enough? Is that okay? It's nice to see all of you. And so I've recently come to Portland from DC Public Schools, where I was a principal for 8 years, and there we had a very high stakes evaluation process. 50% of our final rating was based on test scores. And so we had a very hard time benchmarking how we were doing along the year. And what's really exciting about this model is it enables, when Charlene comes to visit, it enables us to have a really focused conversation, both on the quantitative data, the numeric data that's visible in the top part of the document, but more importantly, the qualitative data, the place where the action happens in the work that I do day to day. And what's terrific about this model is it allows us to frame the conversation in a really proactive way, what we're working on, reflecting on what happened previous times, and what we're working on and celebrating the successes moving forward. It allows us to have a really focused, purposeful conversation, which has just been a really powerful experience in the short time I've been at Sitten and the short time I've been working with Charlene. It's some of the best professional growth I've had in the building. So professional development is great, but it's really about what happens in the building, and most importantly, what happens in the classroom. And by having this focused support, it's really allowed us to spend our time very effectively together.
That's great.
Could you give some example of that?
Sure. So for us, Sitten is a very high population of ESL students, and working to improve the outcomes for our emergent bilinguals is one of our big priorities this year. And of course, that works towards the reading by the end of third grade goal of our system. And so by working with Charlene and walking and looking at the Seabelt model, for example, and seeing how that's looking across, because our second grade team teaches it all at the same time, we can go from classroom to classroom to classroom and really strategically look at how that's happening and what those instructional practices look like, and how the professional learning communities that meet together weekly, how that work is informing those practices. And by having Charlene's keen eye next to mine, it's able to sometimes triangulate the data, and sometimes she'll ask questions and see things that I haven't seen, especially since I'm in the building every day. Sometimes you don't notice some of the things that someone who's familiar but not there every day may notice.
And Dana, will you talk a little bit more about what Seabelt is?
Oh, sure.
The acronym thing.
Sure. Seabelt is the content-based ELD, so it's teaching our English language development strategies through science and also through social studies in K1 and 2. So that's a daily instructional block of at least half an hour, sometimes a little bit more, in each of those grade levels.
Okay, the next part of the presentation, what I'm going to walk you through is the principal success indicators. And what we're trying to do in the Office of School Performance is how do we align the systems? How do we align the administrative evaluation? How do we align the monthly check-in with these principal success indicators? So the goal is really how do we develop a systemic approach so we have the best principal in each of our schools. So we developed this principal indicator success. And the principal indicator success is a companion to the principal evaluation and to the successful school framework. What it does for us is that it is a set of skills that we believe are foundational in terms of developed success in our leaders, in our school principals or our administrators. What are the things that we know make a difference? So I'm gonna go over, and like I said, this is aligned with the evaluation and the successful school framework. And it's an emphasis on key elements of success. They're simple, they're clear, and they're focused. So what we want to do with this is how do we calibrate that allows the senior directors to have consistent expectations and feedback with principals. So it's about building the supports, right? It's about building the expectations and building the accountability. So it will help us to calibrate, it will focus on key components, it will align, like I said, to the 3 priorities in the successful school framework, and it's also data-driven. And this is what the indicators will help us. And so, go to the next one. So these are the key areas in which we develop those indicators: academic performance, equity, parent and community engagement, school culture, interpersonal skills, operations, and professional integrity. And you have a copy of that is broken down what are the skills that we believe, like I say, are foundational, that will help us in terms of providing our administrators with the support that they need to move from good to great. And what are the things that help the senior directors provide feedback in terms of what are the expectations. So you can see that each of the areas has indicators. And like I say, this is one where we're trying to align what we believe is a good process of developing the support so we can have the best leadership at each of our schools. I would like also to emphasize a little bit what Charlene was saying, that we started to meet with our partners of PAT. We meet once a month with the UNICERVs, and this is an opportunity for them to tell us what they're hearing at their schools, so we can be proactive before things get more complicated, how to resolve them early. So this is one of those other ways in which we're trying to figure out how to best support our leaders to be the best. So that's more or less our presentation, and we're more than happy to entertain your questions. And I want to say before we start, I want to acknowledge the principals that are here that have joined us tonight. So thank you.
And actually, can we ask the principals who are here to stand up? Because we've got quite a few principals and senior directors who showed up tonight to be here. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so we have questions? Director Blau?
Thank you for being here, and thank you for the presentation. One question is on those monthly check-in sheets where the data is up top and then the qualitative a little bit down below. I'm making an assumption to make sense of it, so I just wanted to check my assumption. Some of those data are not available on a monthly basis, so it's not that you're coming back to check and see whether there's movement, but it provides a framework then for figuring out how are you assessing or how are you seeing what happens in the classroom to make progress on those strategies. Is that correct?
Correct. So some of the data that you're thinking about, We have different tools. We have DIBELS assessments and Easy CBM, which are administered on a regular basis, but then there's 2-week progress monitoring with groups of students, and 3 weeks based on where the students' needs are and the interventions that the school is using. So based on what happens when you look in the strategies and implementation and in the progress monitoring plan, there are things that should be happening kind of on a weekly or every 2-week or so basis that we can go back to, and the principal can give us the update based on what's happened in the time that's passed.
Great. And data around proportionate discipline is probably available more often.
Yeah, absolutely.
High school graduation, are
Right,
we looking at
right.
grade?
We're
or
looking at
credits?
we're looking at attendance, all the key indicators, essential skill attainment, students are meeting their essential skill goals as well.
Great. And my only other question, it's not really a question, it's a comment. I'm just glad to hear that you're meeting with PAT UNISERV reps, because obviously, here's my question. PAT leadership would meet with their UNISERV reps too, right? Because we heard earlier the president come in and say some issues which I would have thought would have been addressed in those meetings. So PAT and UNISERV folks talk, right? I mean, they're kind of one of the same.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we had our first meeting this month, so, yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
And just to give you an example, we came up with the idea because for the last 2 years, one of the UNISERVs, John Berkey, we used to go and do school visits together. So we would go to the classroom. So it was really great to see, for the teachers to see the two of us working together. And, we met with the principals, so we met with the staff. So the idea was to really, when they hearing things, it's important for us to know so we can troubleshoot or, figure out how we're gonna handle whatever they're hearing. So it's a way to develop better communication and to really work with our partners in terms of how we can do a better job.
Director Buell?
I'll ask a couple questions and I'll let somebody else go and come back.
Sure.
How do you decide where the cut between what a principal wants to do and the administration wants them to do? I talk to principals from time to time who say, oh man, this reading program that we're being asked to do isn't going to teach kids to read very well. And how do we make sure, but they don't want to come forward, and how are we dealing with that in the evaluation? How are we opening up the feedback from our principals so they can feel really that they can come forward? Because I'm not going to use principals as an example, but the teachers, teacher after teacher after teacher after teacher after teacher I talk to say, no, I don't want to, no, don't quote me, don't say what I'm going to do, I'm going to end up in trouble, over and over. Same type of thing to some degree with principals. How are we opening that up in the evaluation system? How does this evaluation system help open that up?
So I hope that nobody feels that way, that that they speak out, that they're going to
Send
be in
you a
trouble,
list.
because we want to know what is working and what is not working. There are assessed, we have an adopted curriculum that we need to use, and so there are some systems that need to be in place, and we want to know how they're working. So we're more than willing to have that conversation. If it is not working, why it's not working? If it is implementation, or so this goes to say that we want to have that conversation, right? There are some things that we need to do that is part of the work that we do in terms of assessments. Like we have DIBELS, right? And we can have a difference whether it is the right assessment or not, but that's what we have. That's what it gives us an idea of where kids are at and what are the things that we need to do, what are the interventions. So there are some things that we need to make sure that they're in place and that the people are using those resources.
So my question basically is, okay, let's just use Dibbles as an example. I talk to lots of teachers, lots of people, lots and lots and lots of educators, that really outstanding teachers that say Dibbles is not an assessment system. That you really don't have, well, I talked to a person the other day that said, we are telling teachers they must give Dibbles, not their EA. Okay, which doesn't make sense to person after person after person after person that I talk to. And what I'm saying is, okay, suppose a principal says, you know, this Dibbles is not very good, and it's really getting in the way of what my teachers need to be doing. Is there a way to let them come forward? Do we have anything where they can come forward and say that? I mean, I'd be scared to death to do if I was a principal.
Right. So
I mean, come forward and tell the district they don't know what they're doing on their reading testing stuff, which I don't know. I'm not afraid to do that because I do that all the time. But I sure would if you were sending me a paycheck, maybe.
I might frame it differently.
We're working with PAT to develop an assessment committee in terms of what is assessment gonna look like. So for example, this is what we have, and this is what we use district-wide, and this is the data that we use when we meet with principals to look at, you know, how kids are doing and what are the supports that they need. So
maybe they could use
we want to have, if there are principals which I don't know of any, but we're more than welcome to have that conversation.
Maybe there should be a block here where you get evaluated on whether you're willing to speak out and do, you know, so in this district, I think they call it speak your truth. Are they willing to speak their truth and speak out? Maybe that would be a good block to put in there and say, we want you to tell us what you think. It'd be a great thing for principals to do in their own buildings, because 40-year school teacher here, I've seen ones where you could go talk to your principal about anything, and I've seen ones where you couldn't go talk to your principal about anything. And I've had them both. And one, if you open your mouth, you got slapped down. One, if you didn't. One, if you open your mouth, you got rewarded. Thank you. That sounds like it might. Let's look into that. As opposed to you're in the principal's office in trouble. So I'm just saying, the principals themselves, that would be a good thing for us to be evaluating on, in my opinion.
We want to know.
You don't have to comment on it.
Right. We want to know what is working and what is not working.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do too. Yeah. And so, go ahead and I'll come back.
Dr. Curler?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very clear, because I was getting confused looking at all the paper that we got in our packet, and all these forms. I was feeling very sorry for all the principals having to fill them all out. But it's the world we live in, I guess. It could be simplified. I bet everybody would be more happy. But my question that I was focusing in on is, what's your expectation of how many times the principals should be in the classroom supporting their teachers? And if we have an expectation like that, where is it in this? I didn't really see it drawn out.
I think the most important job of a principal is to be in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's priority number one, right? So how do we make it happen? Those are the conversations that the senior directors having with the principals in terms of, you know, how many times are they going to the classroom? You know, which teachers are there visiting? So those are the conversations. We didn't put a number of, on these principal success indicators, but being in the classroom is the number one job. You need to know what's going on in the classroom, how our kids are doing, because by being in the classroom, I mean, you solve so many things like, you know, discipline, you get to know what's happening in the classroom, kids are engaged, you know, if teachers need support, so.
But so I would.
Another
box. Well, thank you, Director Buell.
If it was me, it will be 100% of the time.
Anyway, you might think about including it in all these reams of paper that these since if you think it's your number one thing, we ought to identify more, should be louder, I guess, would be my only suggestion.
Yeah.
And my second question is, we are, as a board, pursuing, and there is a committee, but it's right down this, in terms of relevancy, a 360-degree survey to where principals will get feedback, right? And not only principals, but the whole school. But clearly, the principal will get feedback from teachers and from students and from parents. And so, where is that in your thinking included in our evaluation and support?
So we have one, if you look at the school culture, where it says how do we use the TEL survey, and we're working with PAT to figure out like how we're gonna use the survey, right? And the other is, I know that John Isaacs is working on that survey. So, I mean, we welcome any form that will give us feedback in terms of how effectively are we doing the job.
Because that really is, I mean, the intent of this survey is A, to be yearly, and B, to provide really good feedback. So I would hope that that the intent and promise of that survey is fulfilled, and that we use it in a way just to better.
Definitely.
better
We
ourselves.
want to know how we're doing,
Yeah.
and how the communities and how the students and how the teachers feel.
Yeah. So I would like to see that included somehow.
So, Tom, like
Yeah.
under school culture, 3 boxes down where it says TEL survey.
Yeah.
Which is what it is, right, what they were using right now, that school climate survey will be our ongoing instrument. That's our own survey, so,
Okay.
right, but that's where that is
Just
shown.
another comment on that.
Yeah.
Piece two, just from the school climate committee. So staff is right now in early stages of developing the draft and going out to stakeholders to get input on that draft. But just looking at this chart, just so many similar themes. So it's going to be, well, it may not be crosswalked to every single one of these. It's absolutely the same information. So that's definitely where we're headed.
Supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as it rolls out and as we incorporate that into our culture ongoing, as you say, I would assume that would be folded into
Yes.
this as well.
Dr. Regan?
Hi, thanks for being here. I had a question for you about the 7 key areas for principal success indicators, and then you list those. And I mean, I think you just said that the most important place for a teacher to be is in the classroom. I think as an instructional leader, collaborating with teachers and the rest. And yet, in these 7 key areas, you don't see kind of instructional leadership kind of listed as one of those key areas, and I guess I'd like to call that out a little bit more. The specific question I had, though, is when I look at the 7 indicators you have, one is operations. I'm thinking back many years ago, there was a pilot offered to high school principals, a pilot program offered to high school principals, where high school principals, if they wanted to put in half of the FTE, the district would match half of the FTE, and they could have a business manager in the high school. And to me, what was most fascinating about that is which principals said yes. Because to me, that said, I want to be in the classroom. I want to be an instructional leader. I don't necessarily need to be the person who is doing all the operational stuff and the fields and sports and everything else. I want to be an instructional leader. So have we ever done an evaluation of that program? And are we thinking at all about whether or not at some point, especially in our high schools, we could go back to a model where you have a business manager who handles all the other stuff so that our principals truly can do the instructional leadership in the building?
So, yes, at the time we were doing this one, we did do an evaluation. Actually, we did some good real-time evaluation, and we had it, we still have our business manager at Franklin.
Okay.
And I don't know if we have them anywhere else.
Wilson?
At Wilson. And it's the same business manager at Franklin as it was at the very beginning. Is Wilson also the same?
There was one.
for a long time, so they may be two of the original ones. I would just say one of the conversations that is up this year is the school-wide support table.
Yes.
And this could be one of the conversations, because yes, in the schools where it was the right combination of people, totally worked and made a big
Right.
difference, yeah.
Right.
So, and when we've been doing the bond, it's been a huge factor. I'm just gonna say, difference between a school that had a school business manager who was continuity in the bond conversation and when we changed principals, really a big deal to have the continuity of the person who knows the building and is being part of all the bond development, so.
Okay. So my
Contract, right?
other question that I was going to ask is, as we're going into the next budget cycle, what would principals need from us in the next cycle, in the next budget cycle? What would they need from us to be most effective as instructional leaders? Good question. And you get back to me, but I'd love to understand.
You can add that
Yeah,
to the monthly, you can add that to the monthly
There
visit.
you go. So, yeah, I mean, this will be the conversation that we can take it to the monthly check-in in terms of what will be one area in which, because, you know, I mean, we have really, the job as a principal, it is very, very challenging, and it's just so many things, so, you know, it's just, we have some amazing people that have done an extraordinary job, and how do we support those that need more support? So definitely, that will be something that we can, like I say, we can check with them.
And maybe what I would say to board leadership is, as we go into the budget cycle, I would love to get a presentation from principals on what they need to be most effective. And I'm not necessarily looking for all the cluster stuff again. I'm just from principals, just give us the down and dirty, what would really make a difference in terms of student achievement and raising student achievement and hitting these 3 goals of ours. What is it that you really need that would help you hit it out of the ballpark?
I'd really like to just hear from principals. I don't necessarily
agree.
I don't need them to come, I just would like to hear from them. But we can certainly try and add it into the schedule.
Great.
But more importantly for me is to hear from them,
Yes.
more than just 5 that might come. So, for all of our wonderful folks out there who are sitting there. Director Buell?
One of the most important things, in my opinion, from my experience as a teacher, was did you get along with your principal? Did you bring things to your principal? Those types of things. What's your interaction with the principal? And I've recently talked to a lot of principals, quite a few. Last week I talked to quite a few wonderful principals and people that I came across, just marvelous people. And at the same time, I know from talking to teachers, I got stories that I could sit here for an hour and tell stories that would make everybody's hair curl about interactions with their principals and how negative they are. Oh, we had TEL survey principals at 6%. Can you bring something to your principal, an issue to your principal, and feel comfortable doing that? We have people running at 6% that they could do it. You know, how's the trust and respect? 5%. Well, for me, that's almost the most important thing, more than almost everything else. How do you get along with your teachers? How can you inspire and work with people who you're badgering and pushing on? But I don't see that in here. I see it a little bit where it says, has a positive school atmosphere with positive interactions. Fine, but you can have positive interactions and really not want to hear from people. You don't want your teachers to bring things to you. You don't want your teachers to have people slapped down for speaking out about something in a faculty meeting, basically. I get tons of those stories, but I don't see us really approaching that in this. And I just think we're talking about, if you consolidate this one a little, you might be able to get another box that worked on that. Just a suggestion. And the last question I have, I think, is I have a comment. We still are missing. We still are sending our teachers out of our classrooms. So they're not in the classroom. They're out for PD. So way beyond. I mean, we got somebody like 15 days out of the classroom. in a school that's basically struggling. I mean, that type of thing, where does that as a community member, where do I look and say, are you doing these things that make sense? We're following directions, but we're not making sense of how many tests that we're giving, for instance, how those types of things. There's nothing surrounding that where we say, okay, what do you think? I mean, do we talk to principals? What do you think? What do you think about all the testing you're giving? Did they say, well, I don't like it? And we go, I mean, you know, it just doesn't seem to me that it's a workable system in the long run. The other question I have is, did we get some? Yeah, I do have a. I know, no, I'm sorry. I just kind of snuck that by you.
No.
And so the
Not too sneaky.
this is a question. Yeah, well, I know, but I got it in there. Did we talk to in the development of this? I don't mean now. I don't mean after we got it done, but in the development, did we sit down with teachers and say, what do you think we should have on our principal success indicators in the development of it? Not now. I know we're sitting down. The answer is no, right? We didn't sit down with teachers?
We did.
Okay, great. Just checking. Thank you very much. I really
We did?
appreciate
Did
you
you say?
guys.
No, we didn't.
Did not.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you coming in.
Director Buell, I know you had a number of
Got some
questions.
nice stuff in here.
Excuse me, Director Buell, I know you had a number of questions in there, but I wanted to speak to the communication with teachers and principals. Under professional integrity, it talks about the building administrator is accountable as a building leader to staff, community, and students. And so that's where that communication piece with the principal and the teacher would take place.
Thank you.
Dr. Atkins?
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thanks all the principals for being here at this late hour. Really appreciate that and all your hard work. I hope everyone got dinner tonight. Too often people just really appreciate this. I feel like since I've been on the board since 2007, this is the most solid and impressive set of tools that we have in place, and the alignment and just the level of clarity and depth and everything that's just, we've been working toward it, but this is really exciting to see, and obviously it's going to continue to grow as we incorporate the new survey and so forth. So I'm really excited to see this. Just a few quick questions because the hour is late, but this is so important. I know it's been one of our key priorities as a board, so really happy to see this. Just in terms of this chart, is this something that is or will be publicly available to the parents and teachers and everyone else just in the community in terms of the informational piece and just around the district? I mean, this is, to me, it's just really a great chart for what our expectations are.
Yes, it is. Yes, it will be.
Okay, that's fantastic. And then in terms of the monthly check-in, I think we heard earlier from our from the union president, Gwen Sullivan, our partner Gwen, and just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond. She had raised the concern around the discipline data in particular, so I wondered if you may need to come back at a future point, but I just did want to make sure that, because what I thought I heard her suggesting was that there was not follow-up for students, or that students were not having any consequences, and that isn't the understanding that I have. But I wanted to, just wanted to give you either tonight or at a future time the opportunity to address that from your perspective.
In terms of working with principals around the disproportionate discipline, I know that with all the schools that we've been working with, particularly in the Roosevelt cluster, the principals and teachers have been working for a number of years to try to reduce disproportionality. Some of them have adopted the restorative justice model, have been working with Resolutions Northwest. They have had training in collaborative problem solving, where we do more preventive work to reduce the number of students who are being referred out of class, et cetera. So there have been a number of strategic moves. They have formed what's called PBIS teams in terms of how they lay out school climate and culture, et cetera. So there's work, and we've even hired a new director that's working with student discipline in schools. We have some target schools that have that have volunteered to look at. Now, how can we continue to reduce disproportionate discipline? And so we have tiers of schools, tiers of supports, and working with principals on a daily basis who are calling. I'm thinking about suspending the students. Are there some options that you can offer that are alternative to suspension, or are we bound by our discipline policy, et cetera? And we problem solve case by case with principals in many cases on suspension. So we have a lot of active conversation around discipline, and a lot is happening. Some have instituted some timeouts, some study halls, some just different models to give students time to problem solve with another adult, take a break from the class, get support in other ways. So.
Great, thank you very much. And then just my last question was around the actual evaluation itself, and just to see, again, as with our teachers, the multi-dimensional, the rubric, and it's great. So, but knowing that this is obviously a confidential result and process between the supervisor and the principal, can you just kind of walk through in terms of the public's understanding of kind of how this process works and what is done with the results? So where, if there's instances where a principal is found to be on the lower end of the scale for unsatisfactory, obviously we want all our principals to be proficient and distinguished, but can you just talk really briefly about how that process works, and then what the accountability or follow-up is in terms of making sure that principals are supported to be their best in every building?
So we use the same process that we use for the teachers in terms of if a principal is struggling in certain areas, right? And then we have the conversation, what are the supports that the principal needs? And with that, with the supports, there is a level of expectations. That these are the changes that we expect to see, right? And if those changes are happening, then that's what we want. But if not, then we get into the next level of if there is a plan of assistance that needs to be in place, then it needs to be in place. So it is about building people up in the skills, right? And once they have the supports that they need and the expectations, these are the things that need to happen by this time. And if they're happening, great. But if they're not happening, then we move into the next level of plan of assistance and move forward with that.
Okay, thank you. And knowing that there are a billion things that you are doing and that you're asking principals to do, just in terms of sharing, successes and where folks have reached that proficient and distinguished level, are you finding opportunities to be able to share that professionally with each other? Or is it really, knowing that you're always struggling to find the time to make the time to do that, have that kind of conversation, but when we have so many amazing leaders in our district.
Right. So what we do, the senior directors, we meet every week. Mm-hmm. And part of this is like, here is this person that is just doing an amazing job. So how can we start pairing people up, or go and visit the other principals just to see what systems they have in place. Mm-hmm. So this is going to give us that opportunity to really pair people up in terms of building the skills, building those skills up. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of like, with all the senior administrators, the senior directors, sorry, is for us to have these kind of conversations. Where is it just we know that people are doing just an amazing job, and where we can support others.
Director Regan?
After a school has 500 or so students, and most of our principals either have an assistant or a vice principal, and how is the evaluation and support process different for a vice or an assistant principal, and who's actually doing that evaluation? Are you helping with that still, or is it the principal specifically doing it? And how is it different, or is it different?
So the principals are working and evaluating their assistant principals and vice principals.
And is it pretty much the same rubric, or is it different? Is it the same process, or is it different?
So traditionally, principals have just used our existing, the new model that was rolled out last year VPs and APs, that's still the same tool that principals are using with their VPs. In terms of having them participate in the monthly check-in and that kind of thing, principals have the option of inviting their vice principals and APs to participate in the bigger conversation, because this is school-wide data that we're actually talking about. And not only vice principals join that conversation, you have SISs joining, SMSs, data clerks, et cetera, because they're all feeding the information about what's happening in the school. But specifically in terms of AP, VP conversation with the monthly check-in, they are aware of it, but they're not held to the same scrutiny that the principals are by the senior director.
By the senior director.
Okay, Director Buell?
How does the senior director principalship how does the senior director break down with the other areas? For instance, if we take something like third grade reading, that's one of our superintendent's top things. And suppose the directors say, hey, what we need out here is more reading instructional specialists, which there's no question that we need that. There's no question that we need that, in my opinion. I don't know about yours. And but the school people in charge of teaching and learning say, no, we want to really push that Common Core, and that's where our emphasis should be. How does it break down in the end? Do you and what role do the principals play in that? Let's say we wanted to shift and get more reading instructional specialists versus more. We're doing some scripted learning now. Scripted learning, which I'm sorry, please, no, don't do that. But suppose it broke down on scripted learning, then who has the say, the final say? How does this work? Because I don't know what your role is. I don't know what the role of the teaching and learning is. ELL, same thing. Are you guys just in charge of it? I mean, you got problems there too.
So the conversation is, for example, in third grade, one of the conversations that I will have with the principal is, like, for example, let's look at our first grade data, right? How many kids are at core? How many kids are tier 2? How many kids are tier 3? One question what I will have is, okay, what are the supports that are happening for tier 3, tier 2 kids, right? If they're not happening, then what do you need for that to happen? So it's about us finding out what is working, what they need more support, and these are the conversations that we have with OTL. For example, hey, we need a TOSA, or teacher on a special assignment, to go and support these teachers, or go and support the principal in terms of aligning the supports. So it's a conversation that we have with the different departments in terms of what are the needs of the schools.
So you kind of talk back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. We talk back and forth in terms of like, hey,
I hope you're not coming up with more people outside of the classroom. Somebody, someplace, huh?
Right.
I'm just kind of joking with you.
No. Right. So those are the conversations that we're having with the principals, and they will tell us, this is what I need, this is how I can make it happen. Or if you have the personnel in there, we have a conversation, are they used in, for what they're intended to, that person to do, or, so it's about having that conversation and coming to some understanding of what needs to happen.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a couple of comments. First of all, thank you very much for all the materials. A lot of paper, you guys. I'm wondering, do you guys do this on iPads, or do you actually do it on paper? Do you do it on paper? Do you do this whole thing on paper?
No, we do it electronically. And
thank you.
Latrice,
thank you.
And the data is already preloaded.
Yeah.
So when they go, if I go to a certain school already, the data is preloaded on third grade on discipline.
Great.
So it's current from that day.
Great. And then I also just want to say thank you for the alignment here. Having been in the private business world for a long time, all of the strategic planning that we do is all, you know, you figure out your goals, and then everybody's evaluation backs those goals. So it was really wonderful to see how these have been aligned with what the superintendent and the board's goals are for this year. Really, really appreciated seeing that. And then the other part of it was, again, is the paper and all of the different forms that the RAs are working on. And so while I'm really interested in what we can do to help make our principals successful, we have to make sure you are successful. The RAs are successful. So when we get that information, I'd also like to get information from each of you about how this evaluation system is working. I used to have to evaluate 10 to 15 people. It was hard work, very hard work to do it right. And I know that you are all supervising and evaluating at least that many people. So anything we can do to help make your life a little easier so that you can be more supportive of our principals, and then they can be some more supportive of their teachers and communities. I'd be interested in hearing that information from you guys. And I was particularly thankful somebody asked about the mentoring piece for principal, because I think that's I have met with a lot of principals recently and have found them to be very amazing, and some of them getting ready to retire and wondering why. Please don't retire on some of the principals that I've met with. So I think that mentoring opportunity from really good principals helping those who are just starting out or those who are having some problems would be really helpful. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, because we feel we have done a lot of work to align this, and the feedback that we're getting from the principals is also positive. So we believe that we're on the right path.
Great. That's great.
So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, principals. I have my cup of joe. Had it this morning. Oh, great. Okay. So our next, are we almost at the end? We are. Woohoo! So we're now going to have some votes on the Oregon School Board Association ballot. Yes, and then our business agenda, so we're almost done. So last week, Director Regan kindly walked us through all of the information on the OSBA ballot, and so tonight we're just going to do our votes on that. Board will provide a voice vote on OSBA officers and resolutions. Are we all in favor of voting for our own Director Regan, running unopposed for OSBA School Board Position 17? All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, please indicate by saying no. Great.
Yay.
Okay, do I have a motion for OSBA Board Position 19, Doug Montgomery or Mary Lou Batke?
I move that we vote for Doug Montgomery.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of Doug Montgomery, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? No. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Doug.
And we have the resolution.
Do we have a, do we have a motion to accept OSBA Resolution 1, adopts the proposed 2015 OSBA legislative policies and procedures?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed, please indicate by saying no. I didn't see any, okay. Do we have a motion to accept OSBA Resolution 2, which amends the OSBA Constitution? It provides technical corrections to modify the process for the adoption of the OSBA's legislative policies.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please indicate by saying yes.
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 Okay, I hear no opposition. Do I have a motion to accept OSBA Resolution 3 to amend the OSBA Constitution to allow appointment of OSBA Board and Legislative Policy Committee members for contiguous regions if certain conditions are met?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Great. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Bobby, for your service and for bringing those to us.
Thank you.
Now, the board will now consider the remainder of its business agenda. We've already voted on Resolution 4990. Ms. Houston, are there any changes?
There are not.
Do I have a motion and a second to adopt the business agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Director Atkins moves and Director Regan seconds the adoption of the business agenda. Ms. Houston, is there any public comment?
There is not.
Okay. Is there any board discussion?
I just want to remind people that we are voting on both Portland Public Schools legislative platform, which is really exciting, and thank you to David Williams for all his work on that. And we're also voting on the Promise of Oregon campaign, which is supporting OSBA's public relations campaign, supporting our kids in school, so really
Great.
excited.
Thank you, Bobby. Director Buell?
Yeah, I didn't see it in there, but I'm hopeful that we made it clear last time that we're for bills which get that data safer and safer and safer. I assume that's part of what we're doing.
It was on one of the bullets on the priority.
David says yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the board will now vote on.
Point of order,
Oh.
Chair. I believe there's a budget amendment that's part of this business agenda that deserves a hearing before we can vote on it. There's a budget amendment
There is
in the
we did have it
business
in our-
agenda.
We had it in our, did it slip out of my script?
No.
Let's go ahead and vote on this, and then we can, oh, it's in
Well,
here, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
how about I move to remove the budget agenda to its own resolution? Amend the business business
Yeah,
agenda
I've got
to
it. It's,
pull out
just
the
not in here.
amendment.
That's not called out in here.
It's not in my script. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, no, I've got that. I'm just trying to find what happened to it. I totally missed it. No, okay. Good. Okay, so you are gonna just call it out. Can I borrow this from you, Mom? Thank you.
Yes,
Dig
I
through that.
move to pull out the
4991.
Resolution 4991.
budget amendment to its own resolution. It'll need a second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Or first, I suppose I should say, is there any discussion? No, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and vote on the business agenda. We already have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second? Opposed? Excuse me? No, okay, so, all right. Resolution 4991. Can we have a motion to consider?
I think we have to recess.
Do we have to recess?
Mhm.
So if I can clarify, and I apologize if it wasn't in your script. So
It was in the package,
we
just
have
not my script.
noticed the hearing. So if I can respectfully suggest that you recess the board meeting,
Right.
convene the hearing, see if there's anybody who wishes to speak to it.
What are we convening as? The Budget Committee?
No, as the governing board. As the governing board, you have the authority to approve it. You just have to have a separate hearing because
Okay.
there's a 10% change in the expenditures in the facilities capital fund.
Okay. Okay, I'll recess us as a board and reconvene us as a governing board
For the hearing.
for consider, right.
Any public?
Is there any public comment, Ms. Houston?
There's not.
There's not. Okay.
Close the hearing.
So you can close the hearing and reconvene as the board and finish your
I'll
business.
close the hearing and reconvene as the board. Now, can I have a motion for Resolution 4991?
So moved.
Second.
Resolution 4991 has been moved and seconded. All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I said
All right,
I was in favor.
You in favor? 4991 passes with a vote of 6-0,
Was student representative?
with Student Representative Jaswal voting?
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay. That was exciting. I think I have one more thing in here that I'm supposed to. No. Okay. I'm adjourning the meeting, asking everyone to please look on the website for the dates and times for our public hearings on our SACIT and superintendent's recommendations. We're adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.